All right. All right, guys. So far we made a lot of progress, and one of the important thing is that the basic building blocks of a framework, we learned few things. We learned very basics or maybe few things about Selenium, how to use it. Java is something that we covered already in basics. So if you need to go back and spend some time with Java, feel free to do that. Then we have Maven, which we used in our framework, and we used JUnit also. Today we're going to introduce you to two things. One is the JUnit, and if I have time, maybe Cucumber. Sorry, TestNg and Cucumber. So these two things, once we finish, right? Once we finish up to, let's say, this much, and we go into Cucumber, we're not coming back to these things, okay? Because Cucumber is a framework that is highly desired among most of the companies out there. And everybody that is using, let's say, conventional framework like this one, or using TestNg with this, they want to move into BDD and Cucumber. This is pretty much new. I would say for most companies, this is a new framework, BDD, which allows them to be more flexible about writing test cases and also adding maybe cross-check between business and QA to make sure that the tests are being written correctly. So we'll explain what that is in the first place. Cucumber, it sounds like, oh, okay, this is maybe, just a vegetable, but it is not. This is much, much, much better. And by end of this course, you'll probably end up loving BDD with Cucumber and Selenium more than TestNg and everything else. So this is kind of like a spoiler. Everything that I'm teaching you right now, you'll probably say, oh, wait a minute, I like this better. And let me just describe these frameworks a little bit, how this is going to go, because we are learning 3 different ways at this point. And it's not a single way for you to deal with automation. And the reason why you're learning 3 different ways is because we don't know what the company uses, right? So it's good to prepare for the worst. And that's what we're doing. So this is what you have: Selenium, Java, Maven. This is like, think about basic framework, lightweight, and doesn't have a lot of jar files or XML, for example, TestNg or BDD. And we can still get away with automating the way that you guys are doing currently, right? The only missing piece, right? So if we write pros and cons, and cons here, is that if your manager asks you to send them a report, you don't have, right? No built-in HTML report, no email able report, right? Mailable or emailable. Okay, I'm just gonna put an E right there. Emailable report. And not a lot of visibility there, right? Because you have to now manually prepare a report and say all of our tests passed. Now the same framework, let's say I'm going to take this, and it's not a basic anymore, and this is going to be TestNg framework. So this is your basic framework. This is the TestNg framework. The only thing we're introducing is TestNg to it, and we don't need JUnit since we already have TestNg here. And now this framework is, in a way, you can think about as a complete framework at this point. Okay, why? Because after running all your tests and everything, you can now get built-in HTML report and emailable report, and even like screenshots if you like, of your test. So report generates, right? Built-in. Lastly, your test will look much better. So organizes test, right? Test. And then few things that you can do. You can parameterize your test. You can run your tests with different data sets and be able to run it, several times with different data groups. So it's something that we have to see it to kind of understand what it is that TestNg enables, but we're still using Selenium, Java, Maven, but then TestNg is just the addition to that. Notice this one doesn't have TestNg, and we're still able to automate. So it's not going to be a lot of difference. It's just going to be when we write our test, is going to be far better organized. And then after execution of your test, after running our test, we can actually see a built-in report to wherever directory we want. We can actually specify that. So that is the major difference, pros and cons, if you really think about for TestNg. And then lastly, we have BDD framework. BDD framework, now we have how many XML? 1, 2, 3, 4, for example. Let's say 4 different dependencies. And for Maven with BDD, we need at least 3 more dependencies in order to implement Cucumber. Okay. BDD stands for behavior driven development. All right, so what does that mean? That means that any test that you're going to be writing is going to be user point of view. Okay, what does the user do, and what is the software is doing in response to that action, user action? Okay, so we're always going to be writing something like this. This is a sample test given I, for example, I can go in, I can say I, or I can say user. Okay, so user goes to login page, right? When user enters valid user name and password, then user should be able to log in. That's it. This is a test case for login. This is a positive test case, and this is using valid credential, therefore it's a positive test case. Now, this is how we write tests in behavior-driven development. We explain everything based on the user point of view, and we literally write the test in plain English, just like this. We don't write in code, but we will be writing code behind these lines, okay? Behind each line, there will be code, and we have to associate that code with this line, so that way when we run the test, it knows which code is associated with which line, and it runs it. And the reason why BDD and Cucumber is kind of getting more and more attention is because if think about you joining a company and you have no idea about their test cases, and you're just brand new, you can still read the code by just reading the test and see, okay, this line's supposed to take me to login page, and then you can look underneath what's the code behind it, but at least you know what is the intention and objective of this line. Okay, so that way you can see whether they're doing the right thing or the wrong thing. And the other reason why the benefit of using BDD is that a couple of months later, if you write your test in, let's say, this framework or that framework, you go back, it will take a little bit of time to understand what it is that you wrote. I don't think you'll remember after 3 or 4 months after writing this test, and you may end up doing the wrong thing because you don't know exactly what you meant to do at that time. And so with BDD, you don't have to have that confusion. You don't have to write a lot of comments because you're already writing your test in plain English. Okay. And that's one of the reasons why it's super easy for maintainability of BDD tests and in BDD framework. The other thing is your coworkers, if they don't know automation, if they don't know how to write code, they can still automate without having to write code. Okay, so you continue to write code for them, for example, and you write these lines. All they have to do, call this line wherever they want. For example, they want to validate if you're in the right login page or not. All they have to do is copy this and paste it on their test, and this line will work independently. It has no association with the previous lines. So we will talk about this. This is the ultimate goal. This will be your final framework, the last framework that we'll talk about. And again, BDD for the new tools that are coming out there. And I'm talking about JavaScript tool, I'm talking about Cypress, and I'm talking about the latest and greatest. These enables BDD as well. So many companies, they will not just simply set for using the tool by itself. They will say, can you do this with BDD? Okay. And that is something that I'm being asked, because as a QA solution architect, I have to let them know, is it possible to do that, and how that will help the entire team. um, and so whenever new tool comes out, and let's say client asks me, hey, is it possible to use BDD and Cucumber with this tool, um, pretty much doing the research and understanding, and then even create a framework for them, to show them that it is possible, and it can be used among their team. And and over the years, I realized the importance of BDD in a team is because BDD allows them to be able to have a lot of flexibility in maintenance, and be able to use this steps, reuse these steps, which essentially less code, more work. And one thing is that when you automate, they will ask you these questions in interview too. What is the challenges? What are a few challenges in automation? And honestly, the challenges are not that you cannot write a test. Like, you may just say, okay, well, I was trying to deal with drop down and I can't. It's significantly hard, and this and that. That is not even a real challenge. The real challenge is, for example, how do you maintain your existing automation? How do you make sure that your automation doesn't fail and is doing what it should do? For example, um, you don't have enough bandwidth. Let's say you don't have enough money, which is your bandwidth. Let's say that's the manpower in your team. And in a real world example that I'm trying to give you, so you don't have enough money. Money is equal to manpower in work wise, right? So, and I'll come to that. So you don't have enough money, and you decided to get a Lamborghini, okay? And all your money you spend on Lamborghini, and you got the Lamborghini, but you cannot drive it. It's pointless. You cannot drive it is because you cannot buy gas. You cannot even maintain, and you're scared of taking it outside because you're gonna run out of gas. And then what if there is an accident? What are you gonna do? Can you afford to pay another $100,000 to fix it? Same thing. Likewise here, it's just that if you have 2 or 3 QA guys in your team, and you decided to have a maintenance heavy, meaning like a very expensive framework, and I'm not talking about you buying the framework, you created a framework that is expensive for the company, is because you did everything the wrong way. Now this company is going to spend more money on maintenance, right? They may end up spending 3 times and 4, maybe like several times, like 10 times more money on just maintaining the framework rather than creating new tests. And there are companies, there are teams that I dealt with in the past where the team members, they're scared to add new tests, is because they said, oh, this is gonna probably add more time to our execution, and now it's gonna take longer, and this and that, right? So that is not true automation. True automation is that you do it right from the day one, and that's it. You don't really create more work for the future, because if you do that, then it's not automation anymore, right? Because somebody who does this manually, this test, do you know how long it's going to take for me to test this manually? All I have to do is log in using username and password, and I can say, okay, it's done. So literally 10 seconds, 20 seconds at max to validate this, right? Now, if you somehow created a test that requires this test to be updated all the time, then this defeats the purpose of automation. Okay, so we have to keep in mind that we don't want to defeat that. We want to make sure the automation has a greater value in your team. And we also want to make sure that we don't create so much work for ourselves just to tell the team, hey, we're all good, everything is running, you have to work extra to make sure that it passes all the time. That's not the way that we want to automate. So we'll talk about those also as we progress through different framework. Again, the framework that you know now is just the basics. I don't think a lot of company uses the way that we have done so far. We did page object pattern, but we will have to do better, right? Before we move into that kind of page object is basically going more in advance, and we'll talk about it because we'll have to classify different objects and move them over to appropriate files. But before that, we're going to learn TestNg, we're going to learn BDD, and then we will perfect this framework, the last framework, using BDD. And that will definitely help you guys to be able to automate without having a lot of, I would say, a lot of maintenance work. Okay. All right. So a lot of talks. So let's do something. So about homework, I'm going to spend, I just don't want to spend the time today here to go over homework, because unless somebody has a problem, we talk about it at the end, is because I'm gonna score them and grade them and then talk to you guys personally, and I will send that personally, so that way we don't end up spending a lot of time less, because we want to move forward rather than stick to one thing. Maybe next week that there will be database classes that we want to start, so let's see how well and how far I can go this week in order to make that happen. All right. So let's deal with drop down. So remember, we talked about it the last time. So far, text field is, everybody is like, when I said Selenium basics, text field is everybody is very comfortable with. And let me, all right. Drop down is the significant one, is because it's not an easy one, right? And it would deserve a lot of explanation how drop down works. And then after that, remaining elements you probably know already, but I will explain. All right, let me just run this real quick, and then I think we did this last time, but I'm gonna run this to see if it works, and then we. All right, so notice COVID sign is gone, right? Is this going to fail your test? Yes, it will. If you don't have if and else, those with if and else, like for example, noticed closed, if you wrote if this guy is there, only then click, then your test is not going to fail. There is a classic example of dynamic test automation. We don't just simply write a line to say, okay, click here, because we don't know if that is going to show or not show, right? So those with if and else, you guys are fine. You don't have to change anything. Those without it, you have to comment it out like me to make sure that your test runs.
So generally, whenever there's something that has like a pop-up, it's like better to go with if and else in the first place, right?
Yeah, anything that you okay, you see now I have to, so notice like the first time you didn't, the second time you did, right? I don't know if I don't know if that is, I'm gonna run it one more time to see that how often this shows up. If you have something that doesn't show up every time, but it does every now and then, for example, this pop-up right here, then you have to use if and else. You have to, otherwise your test is going to be sometime passing and sometime failing, and we don't want that, obviously, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, that will create flakiness. Flaky means, like when they say flaky tests, means that it really don't have a real reason to fail, but it does fail time to time. It doesn't have a bug. The application doesn't have a bug. Your test is the one that is causing this failure, nothing to do with the bug or the application. So flaky test is one of the challenge of automation, and they will, like, you may think like, okay, that can be right. Whenever you go on an interview and they say, okay, what is the challenge? What is the biggest challenge of automation? The biggest challenge is being able to create automation that is self-sustaining and maintainable, and it doesn't require a lot of attention. Because if it does require a lot of attention, then we might as well just do manual testing. Why even doing automation? What is the purpose of automation, right? Number one, it is not to replace the manual, but it is to help manual testers, right? If we get 80% tasks automated, that means those 80% manual testers don't have to deal with. They can only deal with the 20%. Therefore, they don't have to spend 2 weeks of testing. They can spend 2 days of testing, and remaining will be taken care by the automation. Now, you come to your team and say, guys, we're not gonna be able to run tests this week because it's all upset. Everything is failing. Go ahead and do manual testing. Now your team is doing 2 weeks of testing because automation is already crippled, right? It doesn't have any good use in the team. And that's exactly one of the biggest challenge that I have noticed over and over different teams over the years, where they become big enough, they have a lot of tests, where now they lost control of that test. It's like having to buy a Lamborghini and then don't know how to find money to just buy gas and maintenance money, right? And that's pretty much probably a good example to that. All right. So I'm going to undo this. I just want to make sure this is sometime happening and sometime not happening. If that's the case, then we have to put in if and else, and I'm going to probably do that right now. It's just getting annoying already. But let me just run it real quick. You see, now it's not, right? So that's where we have the problem. So I'm going to go ahead and do this, and those who didn't, you guys can do it now. So you have to start with the Boolean because that's going to be true or false, right? And you then give it a maybe like,
Oh, I think it's only not because of the if and else. They change the auto insurance quote request, the line, you see, they had it like capital and small, but now they have all capital.
oh, so they made some upgrades. Okay,
Yeah,
so that's great. Yeah. Wow, I didn't notice that.
but if you inspect it, it didn't change over there.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah.
that's a good point, right? And I'll explain why that is the case. Sometime you'll notice this and you'll have to try both ways and see which ways works for you. Now, that's definitely a good point that you brought it up. So notice how this is capital, but when you inspect it, it's not capital. Why is that? Why is this case, right? It's because the capitalization is happening after this rendered, this displayed, right? The capitalization is happening using style rather than having to deal with the HTML. This is HTML, okay? So your HTML is coming as is, no issue, nothing, right? But then once the HTML finishes rendering, because HTML is the first thing we'll render, then what it does is that they have a style sheet, which is coming right here. In this style sheet, there is a style that they applied in order to make this uppercase, right? So therefore, your automated test will see, because it will see same as a user, right? So if you just use this one, it may not work. You may have to use all capitalization, because as a user, that's what you see. The last thing you see is that auto insurance. But if you refresh and your computer is slow enough, if it's slow enough, you'll see first is lowercase, because that's the first thing we'll render. Okay, so we have to use capitalized, and let's see what is the error message, because many of us, like over the last week or two, one thing I noticed is that you guys don't really read the error message, right? Is because, and even if you read it, you just don't have the patience to like read each line and say, where did we make the mistake? What it is that I need to do. Now, if you don't have that, then you cannot be a good coder, right? If you have an engineering mindset, you should be asking the question why. If I tell you this is how it works, you shouldn't be just taking it as is. You can't just take it and say, okay, it works, let me move on to the next thing. You should be able to learn why that worked, so that way the next time you don't have to go through the same struggle. And that is a engineering mindset, right? So even at work, your coworkers comes and say, hey, just do this for me and it'll work, okay, and leave me alone. You're gonna have to ask, and can you just briefly explain? I don't want to bother you again. Why is it the reason it works this way and not the other way? You know, and it's perfectly fine. But if you don't ask the question why, and I'm not just saying your coworker helping you, I'm just saying you yourself, you went online, for example, let's say something didn't work for you, you went Googling and that line worked from Google, whatever you got, it worked and everything. But you didn't ask that question, like, okay, why that it worked? So next time you have the same issue, you really don't know what it is that you're dealing with. And you're not really adding knowledge top of your existing knowledge. You're just saying, okay, it worked, let me move on. So in the beginning, the first 2 years of your automation career, I would recommend that you go out and learn about any mistakes that you're making. And you can start by reading the error message, because this is something like that you see, right? And then he's like, oh, it's not working, can you take a look, and this and that. In real world, you don't have a tech support after when you go to work, right? You don't have a tech support to say, okay, this is not working, let me may know this and that, and then they help you, because you are the tech support, you are the technical person. So it really doesn't make sense that the company is going to go out and hire to support you at work because something is not working. So that's why I would say, start to learn about the, so let me go ahead and run it again, and I'll show you the error message, and then we'll fix that. And it's a good thing that the application already updated, because companies do that all the time. Your team will basically see that every week there is a change to the application, and you'll have to adapt to that change. So notice right here, we don't have that thing, and it failed, which is fine. And we have a problem with the link. Find element, it cannot find using link text, period. So now if you lose your mind and say, hey, look, it's not working, man, it's not working, I don't know, we just have to try everything. If you're a QA, you try everything, right? If you have a QA mentality, you try everything, absolutely everything. And you don't get up from that seat if it doesn't work. Just keep on trying until it works. Initially, you have to have that kind of mentality, otherwise you will feel like this is just too much for you. So let me go into the website real quick. And how do you get yourself the, oh, it became too big for me. 1 second. So how do you get this? You can simply copy, highlight and copy if it lets me, first of all. Oh goodness. So if you copy from here, it should be able to give you the exact way, but it's not letting me because it's a button, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to type it out at this point. I mean, I'll try to figure it out, or I can just type it out. It's going to take less time for me to just type it out. So I'm going to see if that works, and then we move on to our drop down, which we wanted to do to begin with. Auto in. And we have to be careful when we type in specifically link text and IDs and things like that, the locators, is because you may type a wrong character in there. You may type something, and now you will spend hours thinking, why is it not working for me, right? And so just be careful with that, because we try to copy this rather than typing it. This is a special situation where we have problem like capitalization, but then we cannot copy it, right? Because it's just don't allow us. I'm gonna run it real quick to see if that works, and then we move forward. All right, so we're at this point now. That means exactly what we just talked about. It's working. So everybody needs to do the same change.
Yeah, Joel, but my homework also happened like that. I can go to this page, but I couldn't go to the first name, last name, all those things.
Okay, so everybody needs to update. So if this is your issue, then make sure that you make that change. Selenium looks it the way that you see it too, right? Because remember, we talked about it. It's the human, whatever as a human we see, that's what Selenium sees also, because it try to mimics the human, not the you know, not the way the machine sees. So either way, if you wanted to use lowercase, you could have used another selector in another locator, and we could have use it that way also. When we land on this page, now we have so many drop downs. So today, right now, I'm gonna give you an example. And first of all, month, day, and year. So notice this is a single. Okay, what do you see right now? Right, you got date of birth. Okay, let's start with state. Right, it's already selected because we have a zip code. So first we want to validate that the state has New York. Okay, so everything else, you guys validated this last homework, this information displayed or not, right? But anybody validated the state?
Yes, I
Yes,
did.
Yes,
I did.
I did it too.
Okay, so how did you do it?
Inspection.
Yeah,
So I mean, let me see, I'll do inspect. Oh, okay, this is Astoria. This is your select, right? So
Yeah.
you got so many
Then
things
we go
coming
to
in
the
here.
New York.
yeah.
You got value using something, right?
Yes.
Okay. So that's fine. So not a lot of change there, significant change there, right? All right. There is another way for you to do that, and we'll talk about it, which is to see what is a selected, what is a selected option. So right here, we'll talk about that also. All right.
I have
So
a
date
quick
of birth.
question.
Yes.
Sorry. Because I did make a mistake and then I learned it and then I fixed it. The only issue was like I did use if and else, but then you didn't use if and else, but you just put it like everything in the capital letters. So it does work now. In my case, should I, even though I use if and else, I should use the capital letters and then I will get that page? Because my issue was I checked everything, but for some reason I got the insurance website page, but I wasn't able to get the page where I can get my information, like, the first and last name, this page, like application
page?
information page.
Okay. So anybody like that using if and else, you don't have to, you can disregard what I said about the if and else, because this notice right here, one thing that I just noticed is that if he's there, even if he's not there, it will continue. It's not, remember, we're not validating anything, so it will just continue if he's not there. But if you see exception, like usually if and else we use, if it's something is 100% not certain, it will come and go. But the real issue to begin with, which I misunderstood in the beginning, is that they changed the application to use uppercase. Okay.
Oh, I see.
So we just have to change everything to uppercase and we're going to be fine. And at work, this is actually one of the point that I want to bring in. At work, you're going to feel like sometimes you're a liar because you tested it and it was lowercase. You've seen it last week, and this week is uppercase. And now everybody's going to act like they don't know what are you talking about? No, you have to do uppercase. But like, no, I tested this last week and it was lowercase. Like, yeah, but so always take your screenshots to prove your points. And I'm saying I'm talking about bugs, right? So you created a bug a week ago, and now all of a sudden everybody's like, okay, let's talk about it. You log this bug, let's see if it's valid or not. And now the developers are coming, and you feel like you're the bad one. The developer saying, look, it's working. What are you talking about? But one thing that you don't know is that this guy probably fixed it after half an hour of you pushing the bug, and now I'm not saying he's being dishonest. It's just that maybe he just didn't know when you found the bug, right? He just pushed it. And now he's gonna be like, no, this is not happening. And now you don't have a screenshot to prove it. And now you're gonna feel like, oh, sorry guys, it's my fault. Let me take a look at this again. And you're gonna feel like you're gonna have your second doubt in your mind. You're like, maybe, and maybe I made some mistakes. Maybe I forgot something. So, but if you had your screenshot, then you would say, no, this definitely something has changed, which is fine. We'll close the bug. It's no longer reproducible, but this was the issue in the beginning. So that's why in screenshot, screen video is very, very important in a bug. All right. So once we get to this point, right, let's go into our application, right? We want to select month. That's what we want to select first. We cannot do all three at the same time. Is because why? Is because there are three separate fields. At least to a human, there are three different separate fields. I have to click and select January. I have to February, and I have to click and select, let's say 3, and then I have to click on it and go all the way down to, like, let's say 19 something, maybe like 80, whatever, 1990. So these birthday, if I want to select, I have to do one at a time. And that's exactly what I have to do in Selenium. So let's do that from here, right here. So I'm going to do it all three, but I'm going to do it 3 different ways. So why am I going to do 3 different ways if one works, right? Many time you're going to see one works and the other one doesn't work. So preparing for the worst, you need to know all 3 different ways on how to deal with it. The first thing first, in dealing with dropdown, you have to list your web element, right? And you have to give it a select type. That's the first thing you have to do, because Selenium needs to know it is a dropdown or if it's not a dropdown. And let me just pull that up. So Selenium needs to know if it's a select type or not, right? That's the first thing we have to make sure. And then we have to make sure that we are selecting by what, right? What is the, after locating the element, what is the, are you going to be using the visible text? This is your visible text, okay? And then you go into this, expand it, and this is the value, and this is your visible text. So if I want to select February, I can say 02, and it will still do it. This is still a string, by the way. This is not a number that you will be dealing with. Okay, so let's do something like this. Select. So notice I'm saying select. I'm already specifying what is a type, and it's red already. It's because that should be capital. And this is how you're going to know that you're doing the right thing. It gives you preference. So select is something coming from Selenium, and I'm going to say, and give it an appropriate name. This is a month. Month is equal to new select, because select is a class we're selecting from. And inside of that, we have to provide the web element, right? Now you can choose to create the web element ahead of time, or you can put it directly in here. So we'll do the both way. First, I'm going to put it directly in here. What is this, driver? Is it driver? Yeah, driver. Okay. For me, it's driver. For you, it might be browser. So driver dot find. So here I'm going to find my element, and then I'm going to say by. And I don't know what locators that I can use among all of these, is because I just don't know, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this right here, and we have a name that we can use, okay? Which is a pretty big name, right? But well, let's see if name works fine first. And if it doesn't, then we'll have to go with CSS selector. So data from applicant information, crypt, date, DOB, and month. Okay, so they probably have encrypted this data for the privacy of their customer. So let's see, opening, and then 3 closing makes sense to me. Then what we want to do is, okay, so let's leave it like this. So we know that month, we already have it. Now we want to select, let's say month of March. Let's say March, we want to select March using first visible text. So 3 different ways to do it. First time we're doing visible text. And now we can say month, okay, dot select. So now you see you got 3 options. All 3 is valid. You also have one to select everything. So in this case, if you use index, we can use that and say we want 3rd option. And likewise, you can use value, which is a string, and then we can use a visible text. So let's do the visible text first, because that's the easiest one. And we will use these 2 later. So visible text, and now we have to put a string inside of it. What is the string for visible text? If I want March, then I just have to click on this, copy that, and this is it. And this will select this specific option, right? So now the next one, and don't mind me copying and pasting because it'll be faster for us. The next one is drop down for month, right? Month, and then the next one is day, right? So I just have to go into the day, and I'm gonna use the index value for this. Copy. And then notice the only thing is probably different is day and month right here, but either way, we need to put on the whole thing, day, and obviously day. Oh, so we got the day. Instead of visible text this time, we're gonna be using dot select visible text by index and select value. So I'm gonna use index for now, and I say 1, 2, whatever, 1, which is, let's see which one will be selected. Index, if I do 1, that'll be, so 0, right? And then it'll be 1. So let's say index value is gonna be 11. So March 11 is the date that we expect for this to do it. And I'm just gonna put a sleep here so we can see it's happening. Okay, 10,000 seconds right here. And go ahead and add this exception. So it's selected March, and it didn't do much with the day for some reason, right? So we'll look into that. So what is happening here? Maybe I made a mistake somewhere here. We got the day. Oh, look at this. Nobody's correcting me when I'm making a mistake. What is wrong here? What is the difference between select and deselect? Right? And now it will work. So just be careful, because the method, it has a very similar name. The mistake that I made is that I didn't even read the whole thing. So select, you see, you got deselect for some reasons, deselect all, deselect by value, deselect by visible text. So you just want to make sure that it is not just you're going to select by index. Therefore, here you go. I'm going to go ahead and run it one more time. All right, it's pretty fast. Okay, so it did select 11 with index. You may say like, how come we putting index value of 11? And that is what exactly it's selecting. Is because remember, index value of this is already 0, has a value already. So index value of 0 is already 0, 0. Let me go into that so you can see. If you open this up right here, you see this is 0, 1, 2, 3. So it just perfectly aligns with the value itself. All right, so the next one is for the year. The year we're gonna probably do using the value and okay, and then I don't even have to look at the locator, it's probably year, since looking at this pattern right here. And now instead of using index value, I want to use the select by index, select by value. Okay, so now value is a string, so you just have to know what is the string. So we click on year, expand that, and let's say this guy is like born in 1990. Right here, what is the value for 1990? It's a string 1990. Visible text is also a string 1990. Same thing. So even if you use visible text, it will work just perfectly. So the first option is select by visible text. The second one is select by index, and third one is value. When do you use these options? It really depends on what you want to use for, and I'll explain in a bit. The reason why you want to use select by index is because you don't know what might be the option here. You don't know. You can't really predict what will be your option. You just want to always, in order for you to move forward, you just want to click the third one. For example, right here, maybe this option changes time to time. You don't care about the occupation. You just want to select any one here. So instead to make your test fail because some option change or something happened, you just simply want to say, okay, select the third one. Just select the third one and move forward. That is using index value. So your test is not fragile, right? That's what you use. Whenever you don't know what are the options, the option may vary, the option may change. You will use the index value for selecting that option. If you do not care about what you're selecting, you just want to move forward to the next page and your test is not associated with, you're not validating what you're selecting, then you should probably use index value also, because you don't really care about what it is that you're selecting. You just want to go to the next page. This is part of the process. And then on the next page, you do validation. Then you want to select by index. Visible text is that you know exactly, in your case, March, you want to see March is there. So when you use visible text, you are not only validating the option has a March, but also you are doing what you need to do. You are actually selecting March, but you also validating March exists into this drop-down list. Okay, so you're doing two things. Index is like if you don't really care, but then if you're using visible text and value, you care, and that is part of the validation, because now if it's not there, it will complain to you and say, I didn't find this option. So that is a good test. So you just want to make sure that where you use and why you use it, it is something that you want to think into consideration before you make the good use of it. But sometime one doesn't work, that's totally fine. Nobody has to know. Try the next one. Nobody has to know. Try the last one. And if it works, that's it, and stick to that. That's what I will tell you if you are a first-time automation person, right, at work. Any questions
So
on
in
drop
this
down?
case, yeah. So in this case, do I need to test all the months, like 12 months? Because I don't actually, we don't know what is the date of birth of the customer. So do I need to check all the month, all the day, and all the year, which is in index?
Right. So let's say you are going through this, right? Again, you know that you're actually creating this customer, right? Because you're creating them a code. And really, as long as you know that they're over 18, you're fine. Then the only thing you care about is the year that you don't select on 2019. Sorry, 2019 or 2009, whatever. So these two, you can leave it with index, right? But now if you want to be a little bit more cautious, you want to say, you know what, I want to make sure that these definitely have all the years. And you have to, let's say your test cases, you have many test cases, right? So at least the first test case, you can say, I want to select January. The second test case, I want to select February. The third test case, I want to select March. So you go through each month for all 12 months, you using your 12 test cases. Along the way, because you have to go through anyway, you are still creating the assertion there, because if it's not there, it will complain. So you are validating all 12 months instead of like just making a test by itself. So your manager comes to you and say, hey, have you tested the date of birth month field? It should have 12. And how are you testing it? You're going to say, look, I don't want to just create a separate test for it, because we have to go through this page in order to move forward with the rest of the test cases. So what I'm doing is each test cases, when I'm going through it, I'm part of it is that I'm sometimes selecting January, February, and then likewise, I'm selecting all of the months for my test cases. So now one at a time, I'm validating. If any one of the test cases fails for these reasons, I will know. Make sense? Instead of you saying, okay, I'm just going to create a test case just for this. And you can if you want to, but is it efficient? That's the question, because you have to go through this regardless. If you want to validate something on the next page, why not just adding this as part of the steps, right? Here, when you validate somebody's date of birth, right, you don't validate it because, again, all you need right now, like, let's say, what is your goal of your test case? It's not about the, oh, I want to make sure that the date of birth of the customer is correct. Since you're creating the customer, the date of birth can be anything, right? Because Jimmy and Camel, whatever, this person doesn't even exist. We're just adding this, and it has a random number at the end, right? So this person doesn't exist. You can also randomize your date of birth. Then you can say, sometime I want to select January, sometime I want to select February, sometime I want to. So you can say index value, and you can probably use a random generator, right? Randomly generated number that will generate a number from 1 to 12 all times. And you want to select based on that, you can select whatever you want. So you can randomize this as much as you want. And this will probably catch some issues if there is, let's say, a month missing from this list. If you do it that way. But I would say, what matters to you? If this test data needs to have accurate date of birth, right? I don't think so, as long as they're 18 and you're selecting, let's say, the year that definitely matters. So you want to make sure that you're selecting that. But let's say you later want to validate that when you go to the third page, proceeding from step 2, you want to make sure that the date of birth and everything that you selected is appropriate. If it's actually going to the next page and showing the right date of birth, then yes, you have to select by value or the visible text, because that's the only way you will know what you selected before, right? If you use index, then you have to know exactly what index has, right? If 11 is equal to 11 or not, right? So that will make it difficult, but you can still be able to do the same validation. And the information that carries over is called pre-filled information, right? When we go to the next page, we want to validate the pre-filled information is correct. Like, for example, right here, you guys already validated that first name, last name, email, phone number, and everything else is pre-filled because the last page, we already filled this information. Imagine your customer has to come to this page, and along the way, you have to fill out again and again and again. They will not even care about how good of a deal that you're giving them. If this is Geico, for example, then it's okay, this is too much, I'm going to call the customer service. What's wrong with calling the customer service? Nothing, but then you're spending money. Somebody has to sit down and talk to them and spend half an hour. That person has a salary. So now customer service is getting more calls than the website, right? So website is not generating any customers or revenues. Now your company has to hire more customer service persons rather than, having a lot of customers through the websites. So remember, it is pretty much essential, some of the features that you yourself dealt with in many of the websites that you used in the past. So just bring that mindset, understand, and just always take the user side when you do testing, because you need to make sure that user is going to be happy with it, or and always bring the recommendation if they're not going to be happy with it. For example, you click on March, you select on March, and then there's a pop-up comes in and says, do you really want March? And you then said, okay, I confirm, and done, right? That confirmation is unnecessary. How many clicks do I have to do? I had to do 4 clicks in order to just select March. If 1 million customers are going daily basis to this website and spending 4 extra seconds to create a code, that's a lot of seconds if you really put them together, right? And we don't want that. So when we create websites, when people create websites, their mindset is always how efficient a website can be. How can we make their life easier? How can we not really have customer get angry with the process, right? And that's why you will see a lot of user guided website where they will say click this and click that, and you'll be fine, we're almost done. Sometimes you will see they don't even display all of these because they don't want user to look at this like, oh my god, I have to fill this out, forget it, done, I'm going to call the customer service, right? What they do is that they trick them, they hide this using JavaScript remaining. As soon as they fill out first name, the next one comes in, boom, oh okay, maybe another one, and they're going and they're going and they're going. Before they know it, they're already filled out most of the fields, and they at that point they're too late to say never mind, I don't want to do this. They can now proceed to the next step. So that is the way, the design and everything, the way that your business team will think, or the way that your product team will think is, that's what they get paid for. They need to make sure that it is thought correctly and behalf of the end user to make their life easy. Therefore they will use it, and therefore company will save money for not hiring too many customer service people. All right, and then that is one example. Like if you go on Chase Bank and you want to make payments to your credit card, somehow you can't because something happened, somebody missed a bug, and now your credit card is not processing, whatever, your payment is not processing. You're going to call customer service. That day customer service is going to be crazy, and that creates problem for the company, because now one day they're like really busy and that they make a decision to hire more people. The next day the bug is fixed, and now they no longer need all these people, right? So having a consistent application that doesn't really always have a buggy situation is something that we want as a QA. That is our responsibility to make sure that that never happens. All right, anybody with any question?
Wait, yeah, I have a
The
quick
dropper.
question
Yeah.
on what you just explained.
Mhm.
If we're, like when we're in auto testing, if we have like a suggestion to the development team, like it's fine if we give them suggestions, right? Like something that wasn't in the initial like sketch or blueprint for the app or the website or whatever, like, and we just think this would be more efficient, like it's fine if we would bring that up to their attention, right?
100%. That is something that they look for. They don't just look for somebody coming in and then do their really here and there, look at the requirement, it matches and done. When you are testing your app and you find something that can be improved, you bring, let's say you are a Chase customer, and let's say you're a Geico customer, and this is your Allstate, you work for Allstate, and you just say, on Allstate we see it this way, and here, I don't know, we're trying to do the similar functionality, but it is really missing this and that, right? Or it will not be user friendly because our user will be upset and this and that, right? So you can bring this recommendation, you can bring it to the meetings. Usually on the grooming meetings, you'll have to listen to that. On the planning meetings, when you sit down, you want to ask those questions. Like, for example, in the planning meeting, they will show you design documents. So this is how design is, and they're going to say, okay, so we are introducing date of birth, we're introducing all these fields into our next page, which is the second process in place. And then you can say, oh, I have a question. And then BA is going to say, okay, sure, what it is. And you're going to say, isn't it better to like not make all of the fields visible to them right away? I can look at this and I can get exhausted and leave right away. Isn't it better for them to like see after they fill out the basic first name, last name, then they see the next field and then the next field. I think that way the customer doesn't feel exhausted right away. When we see already what's coming ahead of us, we get exhausted already and give up. So
Gotcha.
let's motivate our customer and things like that. And they will say, oh, pretty good idea. And then you can say, yeah, I use for many of my things like credit card or even applying for loans. I've noticed that they use this kind of feature, which actually is, tricking the customer. But again, we're helping them to do it online rather than calling us. So this will save money and time. And they're like, they will then say, okay, let me discuss with the business, because everything comes from business, right? We don't define the product. Okay. QA and developers, we don't interfere and say, okay, this is how the product should be. We don't, and just understand between suggestion and understand between the decision comes from the business. Is because they did their market research. They have analysts that does market research and say, okay, what they need. You can come back and say, oh, we want to have a video right here in the corner because this will help. But they don't see a business value to that. They don't see how much money this will generate, right? And you pretty much cannot assume that they didn't do their homework. They had to go out, talk to the CTO. They had to go out and talk to the CEO of the company. They had to go out and talk to the business side or maybe the investors to understand what will bring more money in the table. And that's why they make those decisions as a business. And you and I and developers, we are there just for implementation. We want to make sure that whatever they want, they get it. It's because they already did their homework. Trust me, it came from a long way. It had to get approved by many, many higher ups before even came to the table saying we want this and we want that. So obviously you don't want to ask question, why are we even doing this? Oh, this functionality is much better now. Why we want to change it? Let's not question that, but can we make it better? That's something that you can talk about. Like, hey, I feel like this is mimicking something that I used before and it's not doing it correctly. We should be this way or that way. And then the developer will say, no, but listen, this is what they're telling me. That's what I will create, right? Then you're gonna say, okay, let's have a chat, because I feel like we want to do things correct way. And now you can go and set up a meeting with BA and developer at the same time. So all three of you guys sit down and just say, hey, purpose of this meeting is, I noticed that we're gonna be doing this next sprint or in the next couple of days. And I realized this is something that I want to bring it to your attention and see if this is something that we want to change. Maybe we want to change our mind. I think it'll be better if we don't have that extra box where we have to confirm. Why not just selecting? So some of the best practices, for example, let's say a male, female, and others, right? If that is a checkbox, that's a problem, because checkbox is for multiple selection. If that is a radio, then they can only select one. So why give the customer the ability to add multiple selection when we don't need to, right? So these are suggestions that you can come back with based on your experience, but you will have to then talk to all three counterparts to make sure that they agree, and then they have to change the document, and then it will come down from there. You don't just say, okay, we talked about it.
Oh, so it's a process.
Yes. Yeah, you cannot just say, okay, we talked about it and it's done, and now I will just follow this. No. Anytime you find discrepancies where maybe you guys talked about it something and now it came to QA and you were the one who changed their mind, but they never updated the document, you will still have to report it as a bug. You will still have to report it as a bug, and then now developer will be upset and say, hey, what is going on? You are the one who said to do it this way. Everybody agreed, and now you're going to create a bug. You're going to say, yeah, because the document doesn't say that. Can you update the document?
Yeah, it makes sense, because even though we made the suggestion, we still go by what's written
exactly
down in like the document, like you said, until they change it in that, then we can. Okay.
Yeah, that's what it is, because we cover our track along the way. And if you are lucky enough, then somebody will test your work at the end, meaning the product team will say, okay, let me see if I'm happy with this change or not. Is because if they do that, then even if you make a mistake, they will be able to catch it, which is a good thing rather than a bad thing. You get to improve yourself, because they will tell you like, hey, you missed this. Did you test this? And you're gonna say, oh no, I'm sorry. Let me take a note, and I'll try and make sure that next time it doesn't happen again. And that's it. That's all you got to do. You don't have to say, oh no, I tested this. No, it can't be. What are you talking about? You know, people don't like it when anybody will not like it if you don't agree or at least own up to your mistake. It's okay. You're not gonna lose your job just because you forgot to do one test case. So you're gonna say, oh, that's definitely is my miss. I don't know how I missed that. But let me take a note. I'll make sure that it doesn't happen the next time. And so this gets you a little bit of opportunity to improve yourself. But there will be times or companies where you are the last person to test it and nobody else touching it. So just do the right thing, because when things goes south, you're gonna see everybody's running in your team space. Oh, this is not working, that is not working, we deployed and we have to roll back. You see manager running back and forth. Obviously I'm talking about on site, but you'll see like they're messaging back and forth in the group. We have to roll back immediately. The CTO is now who's above everybody, right? Saying roll back, I don't care what it is, just roll back right away. Now rollback means put it back the way it was before we made that release. Okay, so now it will take the DevOps team to roll back to the previous state if they have backup and all that stuff. It will take them maybe an hour or two. If it's a database change, then there might not be a possibility of rollback, right? Now, if that's the case and you missed it, now your team, if there is not a possibility of rolling back, developers have to wake up. If it's midnight or something, they have to wake up and fix it. And you have to also stand by to test it right away, because nothing goes to production without testing. So you have to keep your eyes open and say, okay, is it done? Is it done? Okay, give it to me. Let me test it and then we go forward. Now, let's say you missed that and that's your fault, right? You don't just basically be upset and like, oh, I'm gonna like stop logging in, I'm gonna just turn off my computer and just, no, we don't do that. Just be professional. Just like, oh, really, what happened? Let me see, show it to me. And then you do your investigation, find out, is it really your mistake or not? And then you justify. Now, if it's not your mistake, then you tell them like, okay, this is what happened when I tested it. This definitely has something to do with the environment. Maybe the production is different. Whatever it is, let's fix the problem first and then we talk about it. They fix it, you pretty much wake up and middle of the night, get things done, and it gets fixed. Next day you take a day off because you already worked at night, and then just send an email, just say, lesson learned. When I tested it in my environment, it was working is because of this and that. Here's the screenshots, but when it went to production, it didn't really behave the way that I was expecting. The lesson that I learned is that I will next time also make sure that I test in an environment that is as close as possible to production like, meaning that when you have a production environment, it may miss some plugins or some settings. So you will say, okay, I'm going to create a ticket for our DevOps to look into what is the difference between my QA environment and production environment. And they will then make the change, but this will be the action that we're taking to make sure that this never happens again. Or let's say you missed a test case, you're going to say, this was a very tricky test case. I just want to make sure that I take total responsibility of this miss. And this is on QA side. We already created the test cases and we in the future will not have this issue. We'll make sure that we have a review in place. Whenever test case is done, I'll have somebody review it. So that way we have less of this kind of issues coming up in the future. So you'll kind of like send that email to not to also tell them like, oh, it's my miss and this and that. You also feel better. Now you're going to say, look, I'm owning up to my mistake. That's it, period. There is nothing that, you can do. It already happened. But if you like stay silent and if you basically like always whine about it, like, no, that's not me, it doesn't look good. They're not going to just fire you, but it doesn't look good. The other thing is that in QA, it's like really, it takes a lot of effort to get fired, unless you work for one of those nearsighted person who's your manager. Nearsighted means like somebody who doesn't see the value of education, like giving you time to learn and things like that, they only care about what can you do right now, you know. Then obviously, and also they're using you. When I say using you, they're using as a disposable employee, which means 6 months later they will not renew your contract. They just want to use you for that 6 months and then have you go on your way. Then only then they will probably fire you, but that's fine. But you'll see many managers now, like you can't be a manager unless people like you, right? So you'll probably see very small amount of group of managers who actually don't have educational background. They somehow got a job the way that we trying. Maybe they know somebody, maybe they went through the courses and things like that, but they don't have real education, college education, for example. And so their behavior is really, really bad. Like there are some managers with don't know how to behave properly and in a professional manner. And they think that they own the company, right? They paying money, and they will not be ashamed of saying, oh, I'm paying your salary. No, they're not paying your salary, you know. In that case, obviously nothing should be done without consulting with me. You work with a difficult person and with the manager who has this kind of attitude issue, you let me know and I'll tell you how to either get him in trouble or maybe change your manager instead of you leaving the company. Recently this happened, and I had happened, this kind of issues happened over the years many times, and I would say at least 80% of the time I was able to save somebody's job by writing a nice email to HR, and HR gets involved, and you know, you're working in the United States. This is not in India or Bangladesh where you have to kiss up to somebody, you know, kiss somebody's feet to stay in a job. And again, also dignity, it matters. You have to feel like you know, you're an engineer, and if somebody try to talk to you bad way, you don't want to take it, you know, don't take it. That's what I will say to you. Even if you go to the market, you'll see some of the Indian recruiter, they are really, really bad with communication, and they talk to you bad. Just tell them like, okay, you can move on with your next candidate. I'm not going to work with you because you're not professional at all, right? And that's how we will roll. We're not going to, you know, put our head down just because we want a job. All right, with that said, any question on the drop down before we move forward with the next thing?
Teacher,
I
can
have
you
a quick question. Okay.
okay,
Go
okay,
ahead.
please go ahead.
I was just wondering, like when I was trying to select the day, like index value, so I couldn't figure out. I mean, do I have to put it by myself, like 02, 03, something like that?
So we just put it right here. I see index value.
Yes, yeah. Can I put it on my code, or I have to find the value for it?
No, you don't. So here it already, because this method right here, it knows what index value is, right? All you got to do is put the number. This is the parameter, right? Anytime you see a parenthesis open and close, that means it takes a parameter, right? In here, the parameter is what? In here, parameter is a integer, because this is taking an integer value, which is index value. You cannot put like a 5.5 because that is not a true integer. That is not a whole number. So just keep that in mind.
Yes, and one more quick question. Sorry. The other one you do it for the year is like, how would I know that it's a string? Like you put the quotation and the year. So,
this is, yeah, definitely it's a string, because when you put anything at all, like let's say, first of all, let's say this is a number. 500 is a number, you know it, right? It doesn't have a string or nothing.
yes.
As soon as you put something like this, that is a string, period, done. Okay.
So value always have to be string, like doesn't matter.
Value always have to be string, because, and you can also take a look at right here. You can also see directly, and then value takes string, period, right? So that's how you're gonna have to make it work. Otherwise it's not gonna work. So, but here you can also see it's double quoted. Okay, value, this, and this is a visible text. Even visible text is going to be a string, because how do you know select by value takes a string? All you got to do is, and then select by value, and look at this string. It doesn't take anything else.
Yes.
Okay, so you have to provide a string. When I want to provide a string, then I have to put double quotation and 1990 right there.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else, any question with the drop down?
Teacher, sorry. How can I figure out the visible text?
Visible text means always is that it's more than and less than in between, not inside of like something like this value and this and that, like, you know, like this is your options. Anytime you see on the HTML that has like this way, that is a visible text. Okay, right here, this is your visible text. And also you can see it right here, because visible text, you're supposed to see it, right? You see, this is something, if you don't want to look at here, you can just click on it and see these are visible text, because you can see it.
When I inspect that the visible text, I should go the for example, for a month, I should go the same in front of March, and I can copy that the field.
You can actually do two things. You can let's say you click on this, and now you have the value and you have visible text. You can copy May and it will work, or you can do value, which is 5. So value and visible text is different in this case, right?
That's
So
why
yeah, so if you want April, then you just have to click on this. This is your visible text. How do I know this is visible text? If you can see it, that is your visible text. That's it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But again, like the easiest way to know is that it's always going to be more than and less than. It doesn't have quotation for visible text in HTML. But don't get confused, because this is still a string. Okay. All right. So everybody's good with drop down, then we can move on. So now that we are all good with drop down, I want to basically find maybe like let's see, mortgage calculator, maybe that's better. And let's deal with the text checkbox and text field, unless we want to go into the, you know what, we'll do the checkbox and text field with the new framework. We know pretty much how to deal with drop down now. This will enable us to move forward. So your homework will be pretty much moving forward to the next page and do more validation. But first, let's talk about the framework that we talked about, right? It's 12:20. Make sure you guys ask for a break. I just don't want people to lose focus, because after the first hour in at least online training or online classes, after the first hour, you will lose focus, and that is perfectly normal. So I would say if we do take a break, go out and maybe get a cup of, maybe a cup of coffee or tea, and then come back and focus a little bit more. If you are the person who's gonna say, I'm gonna go back and watch the video, don't be that person. Try to make most out of the class, so you don't have to watch the video. Why would you want to do extra work? So once you make the most out of your class and you feel like you missed something, then you can go and just watch that segment that you missed. But I would say, just for the best practice, always like don't kind of like join the class and say, you know what, I'm gonna watch this video later so I don't have to focus. That is probably the wrong way of thinking. We don't do it that way as a QA. All right, so notice like how we got ourselves a framework, and it's pretty much not really organized, right? Like you got public static void main and all these things going on, and we don't know where the test case is. It's just going crazy. And also we don't have a report. Where do we get the report and all that stuff, right? What if your manager wants to know how many tests pass and fail? You got to show them report. You can't just write it from here, like, okay, this passed and that failed, right? So that's why we're gonna go and use the next framework, which is uses TestNg. We're gonna build it from scratch again today, so that way we're good to go. Let me go ahead and move these things. So here is how to build TestNg framework. TestNg framework. So if you want to build that, you still need Selenium, right? Selenium XML or Selenium WebDriver. Why? Because we still need to be able to control the browser, right? Then we need Maven because we want to manage the dependency, which is one of the dependencies, Selenium. Then we need TestNg itself, okay? And why we do that? Because TestNg is for, we will use it for assertion, and we will also use it for organizing our tests in a way that it will pretty much help us to make it look good and all that. But we will talk about that annotation, which is one of the reasons why TestNg is being used. And in the interview, the only thing they will ask TestNg annotation, and we have to know what annotation is on the first place. Let's do a break. It's 12:23. It's already been an hour. Trying to make sure that you guys are still focusing and still, you know, awake. So it's 12:23. We come back at 1. No, that's too long, right? 20 minutes, maybe 20 minutes or 30 minutes. You guys used to. All right. So 12:30, we take a break. We come back at 1 o'clock. Okay. So I'm gonna just go ahead and explain what TestNg is. So let me just take that 6 minutes, and then after that you got half an hour break, and we'll be back at 1 o'clock, and we will do our next framework. Again, everything that you're building from scratch. So in an interview, they ask you, have you ever built a framework from scratch? And you can say, yes, I did. Yes, I did. Because why? We're doing it right now together, right? So you're not gonna say that I haven't. Because what's going to happen is there are two kinds of QAs out there. QA engineers, we can call them something like SDET, and QA analyst with some automation experience. So these guys right here, they only know how to run tests. Okay, they will just right click, run it, and that's it. Maybe they will go time to time and update the test if they need it. So now there are some engineers, QA engineers also in this case doing the same thing. All their life, they had maybe offshore team wrote the test and they only just know how to run it or update it. They didn't really create any framework. Software development engineer in test is somebody who writes code, and QA engineer, right? But at some point you will probably become a test architect, right? If something like this, I don't know if I got the spelling correctly, but anyway, test architect makes over 200,000 yearly, right? But the sky's the limit for this person. If he says I want 200, then the company has to decide whether they want to pay him 200 based on his face value, right? Meaning if that person, how reliable that person is and how well he will manage the team, how well he will create the tools and things like that. So he can negotiate it up to $200,000 salary, or he can get a stable job, 150, 160, and that's like the fair market value for this position. This one is like 120, 130 is the yearly salary SDET. This one is probably 95 to 110, the QA analyst. Now, when you go out there, some of you guys will say, I created a framework from scratch and I know how to write automated tests and all of that. Some of you guys will say, I only do 20% of automation and my team already had a automation framework in place. And that I guess like classifying who you will be is something will be at the end, depending on you, how much you learned and absorbed on automation. If you're able to create this framework by yourself, then you'll be fitting into this category. If you say, you know what, I don't want to go crazy with coding, I'm not a coder, but I'm still fine, then you're going to go with this, and your resume will reflect this kind of position. So when you get a job, day one, you're not writing code. Regardless of a QA engineer or a regular job, day one, nobody writes code, right? You will have 2 to 3 months for you to absorb and understand what things are. And you'll probably get knowledge transfer and training in the beginning in any company that you join. But these positions, so let's say somebody is hiring who they want coming in and doing some automation, maybe significant amount of automation. They will say, have you ever written a framework by yourself? And you can say, yeah, I have. I created a framework using TestNg, Selenium, and Maven. I also created using TestNg, JUnit, and Selenium. And the last one we will do is the Cucumber BDD framework I also created. And they're gonna say, oh, that's great, that's awesome. And then they may then ask a question based on the framework and things like that. And then you can talk about, how you did it, which we are doing it now. And here, the same thing. Have you ever done, or have you ever created a framework from scratch? You're going to say, well, the framework was created by a company in India, and we're pretty much partnering with them, and they have offshore team, which I also manage. I haven't done it from scratch, but I'm running the tests, and I'm doing maybe 20% automation. That's about it. But 80% of my job is doing manual testing, which is going into the website, right click, left click, whatever, and then validating something you as a human being, not with the code. And that's what you're going to say, and then they will say, okay, that's fine, not a problem. They will basically specify what they need on the first place in the beginning. So if we hear they need somebody coming in and write test automation, we're not even going to mention this, regardless of what's in your resume. We're just going to say, yes, we did it to the extent, because we're doing it, right? It's not like we're not doing it here. If we didn't do it, then I would say, okay, no, let's not even go there, right? But we will talk about it. Marketing strategy is very different. I will work with you guys individually, one at a time, to make sure that you are able to express what you learned here, right? You are able to talk about it. You're able to kind of get some passion about this, career. But remember, one thing, if you don't believe it, you cannot sell it. So make sure you believe as much as you can, right? Try to make believe. If the belief doesn't come right away, just blindly believe for now, and 6 months your life will change. That's the only thing I can tell you. If you focus, and if you just kind of if you feel like you're blind, you can't really see the future, you're blinded, just hold somebody's hand and follow them until you see the light. And that's why you're here, right? If you know your friend got a job, then you will probably be more guided, because now if they were able to get it, then you did. I'm sure one of you at least here that know somebody got a job and they shouldn't have gotten a job, because their skills or the way they talk, or the way they, and it happens, trust me. But at least in our case, it happens quicker, it happens sooner, because we're not just doing the class, we're going to be also in the interview. It's not like, oh, go ahead and for example, Fatima, go ahead and take the interview and let me know how it goes. No, I'm going to say, Fatima, the interview, let me know exact time and when, which day. And that's the way we're going to be setting up interview. We're not going to set up an interview without letting me know. And it's because we are going to need me in the interview, right? You don't want to show up by yourself. You need somebody to help you. And why is because even though you learned everything, even though you understand everything, it's harder to express, or it's harder to talk about real world scenario if you didn't have any. And I'll be there to assist you on that. Okay, so let's do the break.
If it's Fatima, you might do it because you don't like me very much.
Can't really hear you though. Say it again.
I said if it's me, you might do that. You might just push me in the water because you don't like me very much.
Yeah, I really can't hear you. So I don't know if you are not close to your microphone, but let's take a quick break. You guys have half an hour. I'm going to pause the recording here, and some of you guys may have questions. I'll take those. That everybody's back. Everybody's back. So
yes, but yeah, when you create the TestNg right now?
No, so I'll show you from scratch. I'm going to delete everything that I did. I just wanted to make sure my framework is correct when we took the break. Yeah, I'm going to do it from scratch. Delete everything. This was a package. Okay. All right. So up until now, this is what you have, right? And let me just delete this first automated TestNg right there.
Teacher, I have a question.
Sure.
When you go to work, those things will be installed, or we have to do it ourselves?
That's a good question. Now, if it's, you see, like they will give you pom.xml for a reason, right? Because Now you don't need to ask them which one needs to be installed. We already know what should be coming with it, right? So they will give you access to this repository. This is like the framework. You download the framework. Okay, they will give you a link. And then once you open it and you see pom.xml, you don't need to ask them a question. You can simply click on this hammer right here and it will build it, and it will install everything that you need onto your local external libraries. Okay, and then you can run your test. What you need to do is that ask them how to run the first test, because the way we're running right now, right click and run, it may not work because you need to go into run configuration and edit configuration and basically create a new configuration, right? In order for you to, and I'm going to show you guys, I'm going to delete all of these, and that's why. All right, so how can we make your current framework work with TestNg? We're going to convert this into TestNg rather than creating a brand new. And the purpose why, two reasons. One is that this framework is already basics. Usually you create a basic first and then you convert that into TestNg. And the other reason is that we will save some time in the process. So the first thing first, when we want to do TestNg framework, the first thing first, we need to make sure that we have two things. One, on your pom.xml, you want to get the TestNg. I got 7.0. That's what I have, is one of the dependency. I also have JUnit. I can remove if I don't need it, but I can keep it there. That's not a problem. I got the Selenium. Same thing, the same location that you need to go. You can just go to Maven. Everything can be found in Maven repository at this point, and that's how they're making it. So TestNg, you go into TestNg, and I had like what 7 point something. I'm gonna probably upgrade this to show you guys 7.0. I'm gonna get the 7.5 just to show you guys, and the latest one, latest and greatest. Change this right here is going to be inside of dependencies, keep in mind. Okay, and then you see the M came up because it's already red, is because 7.5 doesn't exist. So I'm going to go ahead and refresh this. Is going to resolve dependencies, which means it will download anything that is missing, and then we go from there. The one thing is that when we want to run our TestNg test, we want to specify which tests belong to TestNg, because these are not TestNg tests. This is not TestNg test. This is also not TestNg test. TestNg test is structured. Okay, it is organized, and we have to follow the framework. Okay, so let me open up maybe a sample TestNg test, right? So let's see, sample TestNg test. So maybe like something that we can visually see, or maybe this thing has something that we can look at, right? So this is like the steps to show you. This is for Eclipse anyway, but we're not doing Eclipse right now. We'll probably do something later, but you see Eclipse will already give you these options where you can get it directly, but we have to write this ourselves. This is how a TestNg class is. You're not going to see public void main method and all that stuff. You're not going to see that. It doesn't happen on the surface level. Okay, we only care about public void and the name of the test. That's it. You will see the test has a tag. We'll talk about each of this tag. What else? Let me see. Okay, this is how a test will look like. Okay, so let's look at the annotation. Test ng annotation, and I'll explain each one of them today and go over them. So TestNg annotation, again, we got before suite, after suite, and each one does something different, right? And that's what we're going to be doing today. All right, so let's look at the test, and we're going to just follow this structure and create our test. So the first thing first, in Java, which is a folder, in order for me to specify where my tests are, I'm going to create a package. Package, think like package is like a, it's also like a folder, but it is a, you know, in Java, package is pretty much for organizing purposes. You can put things differently. So here I'm going to put all my TestNg classes. So I'm going to give it a relative name. So I'm going to say TestNg, something like that. Maybe T is lowercase, TestNg, test, something like that. So at least we have a way to identify what our test, which test case are TestNg and which test case are not. So as you can see with that hole in it, and there is a difference between a folder and a package. Okay. So now that we have this package, inside of this package, we're going to create our classes. So Java class in this case, and we can say first, right? First test ng test, for example, right? And we just created in here in TestNg, we don't need public static void, you know, and all that stuff. We don't need main method for a reason, because it already is done for us underneath. Okay. What we need to know is that annotation, which one we will be using. In TestNg, we're going to say public void, and we're going to basically use this to identify which belongs to what kind of test. So this is our first test. Okay, let's find. Okay, so these are some tags that we have to know, right? Let me just go ahead and list them here. Let me grab it from Google, so it's going to be easier instead of writing. TestNg annotation list. Okay. List of TestNg annotation. Let's see, even Google is not giving me correctly. Okay. Okay, good. So I got the whole list. I pasted somewhere. I'll show you guys right here. So I got to paste this somewhere so we can have a track. So the first one is at test. Okay. It is used to mark a class or method as test method. That means this is our main test. This is where that means this is test, right? Where we're going to run the test. Then we have before test. Before test means anything we want to run before this thing, before this annotation, it will run before that. It is used when any method needs to be executed before the test. Okay. It's going to be confusing when I'm explaining this, like what is that test and what is this? Let's talk about these tags. We call them tag, but you know, it's annotation from TestNg. They will say what is annotation in TestNg, and you'll have to say at test, before class, before, you know, after class, before method, and all that stuff. So the first thing is I'm going to say at test, right? T is probably capital, not bad. So at test, as you can see, we got TestNg, we got also JUnit, also have the same tag. We're not using JUnit, so I'm going to click on TestNg. And then once I have that, I can say public void, and now I have to give it a name. Okay, so let's say we are creating the same test case to make sure that if we go to the first one right here, let's do Guru 99 first. So we just validating that we can register. So I'm going to go back to my class and I'm going to say verify that, and I cannot put space, by the way, in here, verify that user can register. So you want to give it a very relative nice name. So as you can see, this is a very good name, and the purpose why you want to give a nice name is because later when you execute, your report is going to come out to be nice because you're explaining exactly what you're about to do. And now what's going to happen is this block, anything that I write in this block, it is going to be considered as test. Everything else is not test, right? So now before we do this, don't we have to create a driver or something like that? So we can say before test, right? Before test runs once before this thing, right? Before, okay. So before test, and the same thing, we just have to say public void. Notice we don't even have public static void main. And that's one of the beauty of this. So I'm going to say setup, something like this. This is setup or create driver. Anything that we want to name, that's really us, whatever we want. And then maybe after creating the driver and everything, we want to go ahead and dismiss the driver. We want to delete the driver. So I'm going to say after test, what happens? See all of the list of things coming. So I just want to make sure I'm clicking on the TestNg, not the JUnit. Okay. The difference between JUnit annotation is that you see how it's just as after. What is after? Like, it's not very descriptive, and TestNg annotation is more descriptive. So we will use that. And so they may ask you the difference between the JUnit and TestNg annotations. We'll do some comparison later. Void, and then we will say tear down means like you're deleting something, you're getting rid of something, right? So tear down of the test. And then this, we can even pass parameter if we need to right here, but we don't need the parameters right now. So first we create a driver, and I can put this in any order, but it will do the right thing. That means what's going to happen is it will run first this one, then it will run this one, and then it will run this one. So now if I take this guy right here, and I'm gonna disrupt the way it looks, okay? And I'll put it right here, and basically let's just print something to see what runs when, okay? Dot out dot print ln, okay, ran before test, right? So this was, and then we'll do the same thing, ran after test, and then ran just test. Somebody here tell me the water, what message in which water is going to print down here? This string is going to print, right? Which one is going to print first, which one is going to print second, and which is going to print third? Go ahead.
Ran before.
Yeah.
Ran before is first.
Okay, this is the first one. Then the which is second? Is it this one or the test is the second one? Okay, and then
ran after test.
Ran after test is the last one. What if I introduce this? We got another add test, but this time I'm gonna say register and then verify user can, let's say I'm gonna just create a new test, can use only required fields, for example, and ran, let's say this is your test number 2, ran test number 2. Now give me a order. I'm gonna hold on a second. Now this makes it a little bit difficult for you guys, right? So tell me in which order. Number 1, which one will run?
Before test.
Okay, so before test. Number 2.
Run test.
So test. Okay, number 3.
The run test number 2.
Okay, that's so remember before test. I'm not saying before class or before anything else, right?
It will be after, I think, after.
Okay, so after test.
And then the number 2, I believe.
Okay, so now number 4, which is
is it number 2?
Number
Run.
4 you're saying is gonna run test.
Run test 2.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to make sense of this? So this is the thing. This one is running once before this and once after this one, right? We have 2 of these. Does it make sense? Any sense? Like it's gonna just run by itself?
Oh, no. It should be before test, I think, again.
Number 5 is test, and number
Test 2,
6,
yeah.
and then after test. So you as a QA engineer decide what you want to put inside of these, right? The idea here is that anything that you want to validate and things like that, that is different than common stuff, you want to put it in before, because it will run before each test, right? You want to kind of organize, make your test look more and more nicer. So let's write a test, and we will then go from there, right? So first, let's run it first, okay? In order for me to run it, I'm going to go into edit configuration. And I think by default, it also helps you to kind of get that set up. It'll, if you probably click on run, it'll set it up by itself. But we're saying all in the package is TestNg. That's what we're saying. So I'm going to select the right package. This is TestNg test. So I'm saying everything inside of this, and I said run as TestNg and apply and click OK. And now we will see these things right here. So I can run. So if I click on run only the test, do you think only this code is going to run, or do you think it's going to run everything? Like, for example, this one, you know? Let's do it.
I think everything.
Let's run it real quick. So first I'm running a single test. Okay, so it will look like something like this. Okay, so you see ran before test, test, after test. So this is just a single test. Notice how nicer this is than the previous, right? You already can see we're gonna probably generate our report in a bit, in about a second. But if I run the whole thing together, right? The whole class. So I'm gonna click on this and run the whole thing. And now we can see like what is the order in which this tag ran. You see right here. Oh, okay, I was wrong. I haven't been using TestNg for a while, but it's supposed to run once before the test, the way it is, right? But it didn't. It ran once for the whole class and then done. So something definitely is not right. Let's see, 1 second. I'm gonna look at the, let's read it. Before test, it is used when any method needs to be executed before this method, right? Yeah, that's what we did exactly, right? And wow, okay. And then after test, it is used any after this method in a class. So the thing is that this is not what I saw when I taught the last time. So we just have to keep that in mind and see how it works at this point. Maybe they change, or maybe things are done differently now. We're using the latest TestNg, so maybe things have been changed. So typically what you want to do, you want to run before class. That means it will run once, okay, once before the first test method in the whole current class, right? And then after class does the same, the opposite of the same thing. So we'll come to that and everything. So let's write our test. So let's say we want to create a report, because that's the whole reason. Like the biggest seller of TestNg is because we can organize our tests in such way like this, and we can also create a report. So let's go ahead and click on run, edit configuration, and add a report to this. So I click on this. This is our configuration, run as TestNg. And then if I go into before, somewhere here I can do output. This is log. No, we don't want the log. The home by default, it should also probably give us the first test use plan. Okay, code coverage. No. Okay, so maybe things has been changed. I'm gonna look at these things. Test classes. Okay, now this is different. Annotation. Okay, there should be an output file right here. So I'm gonna have to go into the edit configuration and add that. Let me see, in package. Oh, right here, listener, sorry. So listener is the one. Listener will basically add the report. Anytime you hear listeners in automation, whether that is for load or stress or even functional testing, that means we are talking about the report. We want to add something, some kind of things to say what passed and what failed. So in here, click on plus, and you want to say maybe emailable report, something that you can email. The reason why you want emailable report is because the report comes with graphs and things like that. And if you don't have the emailable, you cannot just copy and paste in an email. But there are other forms of report that you can probably have in TestNg, whatever it offers. And there is so many, right? You got the suite, you got the JUnit, you got the fail report, and so many. But for now, we'll do emailable, so it will be easier for us to also look at it. Okay, and then we added this, and we're gonna apply. We're gonna click OK. Go back to our test and run it again. I'm gonna run the whole thing as TestNg. It'll be quick, and then we can see the report real quick. Okay, so now this time you can see there is a folder automatically generated for you with emailable report. If you don't specify the location, it will always put it right into this directory in the project root. Okay, I'm gonna right click and I'm gonna open this, open in like browser or something, Chrome maybe. Okay. And this is how your report looks like. Notice it only collected the test. Okay, only the test. It shows that, okay, it scenario number 1, 2, both of them passed. This one took 0 ms and this one took like literally like no time at all. You can click on it, you can see what's inside of the test. Obviously we don't have much, so we can much to look at it, but it shows you method passed, scenario passed, any failed tests, how long it took, and how many, if you have any groups, if you're grouping your test with different name and things like that, and pass or fail. So you can actually copy this and paste it to your manager via email saying everything passed, keep a sign off, and we're good to go, right? We didn't have this when we first wrote our automated tests, right? And now we do, right? And that's one of the biggest seller to kind of move away from basics to using TestNg. And then we'll talk about Cucumber, where it has even bigger seller than just this, okay? But we don't use TestNg and Cucumber at the same time because they do the same exact thing, give you a nice report. If you look at Cucumber report, this is like nothing compared to Cucumber report. Cucumber report is even better. Let me show you. Let's see how it looks like, get some images. And this is how Cucumber HTML reports looks like. This is how it looks like. If it fails, it tells you and everything. It looks good for your eyes and everything. And also there is different way of parsing the report, which is much better, right? And so we'll get to that at some point. But for now, this is TestNg, okay? And okay, so let's look into more annotations, okay? Before we do that, maybe we want to create this as a real test. This is just printing stuff. So now we know that we have to, our test basically runs in between these two, before and after, right? So now let's see before class, because that is the one they may have switched that. Import, okay, and then after class TestNg. Oh, okay, before TestNg, and that's it. So we have imported everything. I'm gonna run it before we can create our test, and just want to see if this does the right thing for us. Okay, before test, okay. So it ran once, and then it's just the exact same thing as the before. That's why I'm saying to you guys, it's probably a mistake. Whatever. It's the latest version. Usually, like, companies don't go into latest version until they feel comfortable. So I can't tell you for sure the problem is here, because it does the exact same thing with the before test. But it's supposed to do once before all. Okay, so that's fine. We can also use before method and after method, but again, this annotation that we are talking about today, we will tag our test with this. This is the real test. Everything else that goes around is the steps, maybe belongs to this test, and we use it to organize our test. We don't have to do it this way. Like, you see how it's kind of, compared to what we're doing over there, it's kind of ugly. But But the same test, for example, let's say I'm going to convert that into TestNg, right? So I'm going to get this driver first. Okay, so now we have our driver in before class, right? We know that we want to go into this page. So this is part of before class, okay? Because that is the base URL. And after that, go into this. After that, we want to type some stuff in it and then verify some things, right? Verify on page. And this method is, so we have to extend, you see Java OOP. We have to actually extend from there. So let's go into the test right here. And notice how it's all upset is because we need to like extend. No, OP. Is it? Okay. OP Java. Okay, there we go. OP. Java. Okay, this is upset. Let's see. Find jar. No. More action. Create a class. I'm gonna create it for sure because it's inside of a new package. So if you're wondering what's happening is that this is a package. It cannot be accessed from outside, right? The classes that we have, we cannot just access it. So I'm gonna just, for the time of saving time, I'm gonna go ahead and copy all my stuff from this and put it in here. And then we will go from there. Let's see. Oh, what did I do? And then, so it's no longer upset. And then we still have these things that we need to, we can probably move it in there, but then this test is gonna fail, right? We don't want that for now. Okay, let's see. And then we'll be for maybe 2 and then do the same thing here. Oh goodness, okay. Yeah, because of the same name and everything, let me go ahead and erase this for now. And then we just create our own classes here, so that way we don't interfere with what we did before. So, okay. So this is our test. I'm just gonna write it from scratch so that way no one is confused. Copy pasting will probably affect you later, where things came from and how they are linked together. So that's gonna be a problem. So when we go into new tours, the first thing we want to click on we want to basically click on our register link, right? So driver.find, and notice how driver is already upset. Okay, driver. Okay, let's fix this first. Find element, and I can't even find element or nothing. It's not working, right? The reason is because you are inside of a method, and you are also inside, your stuff is also inside of a method. Okay, this stuff is also inside of a method. So I'm gonna go ahead and expose the driver outside so I can use everywhere. Okay, so I'm gonna put it outside of the method right here. And I'm gonna say this and that instant variable. And once I do that, I no longer have to specify here. And we are all good to go. It's now in a different color for a reason. And then now I can do find element here. And then I can do by, same thing, dot link text and Mercury tours. So whatever website we're using, in this case, let's just go ahead and Mercury Torch. The reason we don't want to use too much is because it has too many bugs. All right, let me just go ahead and copy this URL instead. And we can probably copy some of our test, which is much better than this one. Okay. All right, so it's going to go to this website. The next thing it's going to do is that we will do very similar thing, right? Once we go to the URL, we want to click on this link, same thing, link text, for example. And so that's what we did right here, driver.find element, whatever, right here, same thing, link text. And then at the end, you see this is your after test. Where is the after class go? Right here. We want to say delete the driver, something like that, driver.close, right? So that way it can close the driver. Okay, even though the water really doesn't matter in which water you put in, it matters what is the tag name that you're using. Any questions? Let's go with the questions and then we can continue. So far, so good. You guys know what the tag is. How do we use the annotation to run our tests for a specific reason? Now, all these tags that we talked about earlier, it's something that is available to you for use, and you can choose when to use and when not to use them. Okay. Any question?
Yeah, I have a question. Like here, when you ran the test, so is it something to look into it, which shows in the red thing, like SLF or failed to load class?
Yeah, so this is something like, for example, failed to load this class, right? I'll copy this right now and I'll paste it. But this is actually our test ran fine and everything. When you run your test locally, you might see this kind of error. And if that's not affecting your test, it's fine. But sometimes you want to fix that. You'll see at workplace, they may just leave the warnings, but when it comes about failure, they will fix it. So how do we fix this? I pasted on Google. Let's see what the suggestion is. And it says that we need to add these two dependencies to kind of make it work. We need to add these two right here. Okay, so these solve my issue. So somebody had the very similar thing. Anytime we see an error message, we want to paste it on Google to see what error, what the suggestion is. So this is for those who came from Google search right here. Or this. So whichever is, I don't know which version we need. I'm going to paste one of these. Maybe it's going to fix our side, but you have to try actually different version depending on which version you need. Okay, so we're missing something definitely right now. This dependency. So we got two of them. I will go ahead and resolve those two. The reason it didn't load is because it wasn't even part of the. Okay, so now is good. Let's do the same run again. Then let's see what's the deal. It's building now, and oh, okay, sorry, I'm running the wrong test. 1 second. I will go to run TestNg only, and then run as or debug as, but I don't want to debug it. Debug is different. I will talk about it soon. We use debug for a different purpose. And so I'm going to click on run as, and let's see if that issue shows up. And maybe it did, or maybe it didn't. I don't know. Okay. Okay, so it ran the test and everything. Let's see, log warning. So now it doesn't say failed, right? Could not found, blah, blah, but It's just showing a warning, 2 or 3 warnings, and that's it. Okay.
And we can disregard that, right? If
Yeah,
I-
you can disregard. Yeah, if your test is not affected, you can bring this up to somebody's attention at work, somebody who has more knowledge about the framework, and say, hey, can we get rid of those warnings? But you can also do your research and say, hey, we can, you know, get rid of the warning, or you can fix it yourself and then tell everybody that I fixed this issue where we see these warnings. But as long as you're not affected by your test, you're fine. This issue only happens when you use latest Selenium, and at work you may not use latest because they don't want issues. All right. So with TestNg, I just want to like again compare and show you how the test looks like. You know, this is the whole test. This is where you are, and basically you can have your second test somewhere here. Compared to what you are used to, if you go back to your demo test right here, it's crazy, right? Public static void main, and then you have too many things going on. And compared to here in TestNg, where we can classify things, we can separate out things, and we have names. And lastly, you get an emailable report. If I just open this up, this one up, maybe I will just do it in Chrome. Okay, and then you can click on them and see more details. We don't have it at the moment. So right here. So this is the reason why you're not able to see all of that, is because we don't have the listener for that. So let me add a listener, a regular report. Maybe we can see the regular report also. And how do we do that? We go to edit configurations, TestNg. Where is my listener? 1 second. Oh, right here. And now we have to click on use default reporter. Okay, so just click on this, apply, click OK. At least we'll get the default now. Run as TestNg. So we can see a little bit better report. All right, so this time you get a lot more, you know, a lot more information. Before you only had emailable, and now you have so many variety, right? So let's open up your index.html, and I'm going to open that up in the browser somewhere, Chrome maybe, and look how it looks, right? It is definitely changed than the last time, because at work we don't use TestNg too much, right? Because of Cucumber and all that stuff. But as you can see, your boss can actually, oh, you can even switch to retro. There we go. This is the previous. This is how it used to look. Switch to ultra theme. This is the new one, looks like. Okay, so now you can actually click on each test and see like they pass and why they pass, what are you verifying part of this test, and things like that. And that's just one report, right? You have other reports also here. You can also see failed PNG. If there is a failed test, it will probably take a screenshot. And what else? Let's see, what else do you have here? TestNg result, emailable. Okay, we got old ones right here. Let's see old. Open this up too. Chrome. This is a very old report, and as you can see, it does look old to me. But I don't think you'll use this. They just have it, so you can see pass to, and then you can click on the link to see exact HTML XML of the test. Help, it definitely is better than nothing, but
where do we do that?
Yes, somebody is not muted. All right, so this is the older report, right? Obviously you get so many listeners, which is the options right here, and you get to choose which one you want to send it to your boss. Even JUnit report, why do we need JUnit report for XML, is because you can use a plugin to parse this information and create a report server, or maybe put it into a separate report, right? That can go into a cloud machine, where it knows exactly how many tests pass and fail based on this report. So many things can be done, and I'm not going to go into this one for now, but all we care about is that emailable report you have for your boss. If you double click, you just see code. You don't see the whole thing. If you take this and put it in an email, it will show it nicely. And then you have your index HTML. If you open it, you can see again the report. You got the newer and then the older one, and you can see all pass and fail. All the list will be right here. How many pass, how many fail, how long it took, and things like that. By itself, Selenium do not have a report, and that's why we have to use TestNg, because we want to organize our tests. We want to get a report, and that's what TestNg was helpful for. So let's go into more annotation, and after that, we'll try to write a few more tests in TestNg, and then that's about it for TestNg. We're not going to go too much into deep, is because you're not going to be using TestNg at work, but certainly the question is there for you, right, in an interview, because your resume has TestNg, and that's why they're going to say, what are the annotation? Even if you go for a job where they're using BDD, they will still say, have you ever used TestNg? And you're going to say yes. Tell me what is before class, right? Tell me what is, you know what, tell me some annotation. Then you can say before class, before suite, after test, and things like that. Obviously, we'll try to prep you and everything for an interview, but this is how the test is going to look like. Okay, so let me go into this one. So this is tear down. Okay, once we go ahead and click on that, the next thing is we fill out information. I think I'm gonna, for the interest of time, I'm just gonna go ahead and copy this stuff. I was going to type it in, and then we go all the way, assertion. So this is exact the same type. I'm just basically converting that into a, all right, and then expected and actual result is missing somewhere. So we got to get those from here, where this is coming from. This is your, okay, expected result and actual. Where is it? Oh, right here. These two is missing. Okay, so I'll just take the whole thing because that's where we are going anyway. Just to show you how it looks. Okay, assertion. Okay, and we don't need the if and else and things like that because we already have the assertion, right? This is it. And this assertion right now is we're using is TestNg assert. Okay, so now if you, let's go and create the next test. So we got one test right here. The next one is, let's say, if you want to continue from here, because we're running once. So as soon as the first test is finished, right, it will also run the after test. That means it'll quit. This time the browser will quit and you'll have to open up again and do the next test. So when we write your test, or when you write your own test, you'll have to make sure that these tests have the proper steps done beforehand. So let's say, let me just do a validation in this case to see if it fails or passes. Let me go into this one real quick. So what is the steps after that? So in here, a drop down, let's say we're just filling out these drop downs right after that, and it is happening with the next test. And now we can see, probably we can expect to see failures. So let's go ahead and run it. I'm running the entire suite. Continue, done. All right, so why it didn't fail is because, remember, we're using before class and after class. And so if we do before test and after test, it should fail. So we'll check that out first after, but let me explain why it didn't fail. Because before class, meaning before the whole thing ran, it ran this first, okay? And then it went to the test and it ran this test first. And then it ran the second test, okay? So that means anytime your test deals with, so remember your test, the first test is a dependency for the second test. Because if the first test never ran, the second test would not pass. You know what I'm saying? So some of the steps that you would have to repeat, if you didn't use TestNg here, you don't have to repeat, because it's one after the other. So far so good, clear, right? Now I'm gonna change the tag name, and then we're gonna see how it looks for the before test, okay? So I'm gonna do before test. Now we have a before test, and then we have after test. If it does the same thing, it's definitely an issue, because they don't need the same two different tags doing the same thing. But let's see what happens. Yeah, so that's definitely is probably the TestNg issue, because it doesn't make sense to me to have the same tag doing the same two different tag doing the same work. So definitely somebody broke it, and they're doing it this way. But anyway, so now I can even do before method and after method if I want to, right? So if I want to run, so each one of them is a method, right? Do you agree? Each one of them is a method. That's how the Java sees. So if I do before method, and it should be red. Okay, now it's already got it. So after method, and now I'm gonna run it to show you how it is. Okay, it finished the first one. Okay, now it's gonna go to the second one for the second method. Second method failed, and what happened is if each one is a method, it just makes sense that after the first one, since it's a method, it quit the browser. Okay, because it's part of the code is to quit the browser. And then the second method came in. Now it's not even up to this much, because the first test already finished. It started from scratch, and therefore it didn't find this. So in this case, before method and after method is not the right one to use. You want to use before class and after class, or before test and after test, because both do the same thing at this point that I'm looking at it. All right, any question, you guys? Anything that I can clarify? So everybody got it, right? Everybody got the okay, so that's fine. Let me just go ahead and show you guys one thing, is that TestNg annotation, order of execution, right? Order of execution is really, really important. Which one goes after? And you as a Q engineer need to decide. So before suite goes before all of these guys, and after suite, obviously after suite, right? Then it goes before test, and then after test, before class, after class, okay? And then before method and after method. So this is the order in which TestNg runs. These two seems like almost doing the same thing, but there must be some sort of difference between the way they work. But as of right now, know how test before test and after class, there is a huge similarity between them. But if you look at this, it kind of makes sense how the order in which they run, pretty much. Okay.
I have a question. What is the difference between the main difference between the class and the test?
So let's look at it because that is something that we were reading. Before test, you're talking about before class and before test, right? So before class, it is used when a method has to be invoked once before the first test method in the current class. That's one, right? Okay, that means we only run it once per class. That's it, right? Just one time, not multiple times. Let's see before test. Before test, it is used when any method needs to be executed before the test method. Okay, so the difference is that this is supposed to run once, which that's why I'm kind of confused too. This was supposed to run once before the method in the current class for the whole class, right? And this is for once before the test method. That means it should have ran twice, but it's okay. We will look at the order in operation right here. 1 second, where is it? And this is how we'll have to explain. This is the interview question in here, but we're not going to use in real life. We're not going to use TestNg at work. We're going to try to get a job in BDD, which also have annotation like this, but those annotations are custom. We can make however we want. More flexible, and it's more nicer to look at, but we'll go into that next class. But this is the difference based on definition. And things changes. There was a time where before test worked the way that I'm explaining to you guys, and now it has changed. Even the definition hasn't changed, right? Definition says before the test method. Any method.
So the thing is, when we use test and when we use class, like in this method.
Yeah, so
like
you can use. So if you need to, like, okay, so if you, let's say, want to run once before the class starts, right? Then you want to use before class, right? And if you want to use like once before a test, I would think that I would basically suggest to use this one, but no, I would say use before method, because this one no longer works as before. So before method you should be using if you want to run once before a test. Each test, basically, if you want to run before each test.
So in this case, we use one test, right?
So right here you have
for auto insurance. This is one test.
So this is one test, right? And yes, this is another test.
This is another test, but it's same thing. It's also in auto insurance.
Yeah, no. But test, it could be the same company, same domain, same application, but the test case can be different, right? This is two different tests. What I see,
yes,
it's not the same thing.
It's drop-down test, and this is one.
Yeah,
different test.
One, you're checking the drop-down that you can select the options, and the other one, you're just verifying that you can go into the next page.
Okay, but then indentation, it written after class, then after test, then sorry, before test, then after test. But you do it here before test, after test, then test. Is it is the problem or not? It's okay.
No. So that's what I was trying to explain. I did this in purpose, right? You see, like before and after, I can do however I want. In Java, if you don't use a framework, it will do exactly like how it'll go line by line, right? But here, this is a framework you're using. You're using TestNg, and this has a meaning. Java, TestNg already told Java what to do with it. So the TestNg told Java that, okay, anybody that applies this thing, you will run it at the end. Anyone that applies this tag, then run it before. So no matter how you put it, you will always run your test in the order in which you want to run. You
okay,
can
like when we run the test, first TestNg ran the before test, then he ran test, then he ran after test. This is the process, or
yeah. So let me just, to make your life easy, I'm going to put it down there. Let's say these things is not part of the test. Before and after maybe setup and all that stuff, whatever. This is your first test, and this is your second test. Yes. Notice before and after, they're like out of order. They're not even in the same place. It doesn't really matter, is because it will run at their time, because we already tagged them correctly. We already used the annotation correctly. you know, if I didn't apply the tag, then we have a problem.
Okay, but
So the
we can
system
apply tag
detects.
in different place. That's the
You
problem.
can put it wherever, you can put it however you want. You can put like, you can scramble it, you can put it in between.
Okay,
But
it's
it
not a
will
problem,
still
but it
run
should be it should be there.
Yeah, it will. Yeah, as long as it's in here somewhere, it will still run it in the in order which TestNg is defined already. TestNg defined it. This is the order that it will execute. So no matter where you put it, it will always run before suite first, and then before and after that, it'll run before test. Then it'll run before class. Then it'll run before method, and then lastly, it will run test. And then these things come after.
Okay, now got it.
Okay, good.
So
Any question?
teacher,
Go ahead.
it depends on the annotation. We have to remember that it's depends on the annotation.
Annotation, right?
And
The annotation is the main important thing.
and
So
if it is class, before class, we are use only for one time, once a time. Is that correct?
Before class is once, before the whole thing is a class. Do you agree? The whole thing right here. So this is your class name. The whole thing is a class. So if you use before class, that means it's going to run once, and then it will run all of the test. Then it will run after class. That's it, once. And if we look into this order and operation, it before test does the same exact thing. Okay, before test, it keeps the test in between. It doesn't go in between.
Yeah.
Then before method, if you're gonna run, let's say before method, that means it will run once before each test. You have 10 tests, it will run right before the 10 tests, once before that. Make any sense? So if you look at this, this is a pretty nice way to put it in terms of what is the operation in way that it executes. Okay, so now let's look at an interview question. TestNg annotation versus JUnit annotation. Where's the comparison? Let's see. Somebody must have created something right here. Okay, go to 99. All right, so let's look at it real quick. Why would you use TestNg annotation? Is because there's dependency test. Okay, fine, but this is not the main reason. The main reason is this is how TestNg annotation looks like. For test annotation, this is pretty much same, no problem. Before class, same thing. All right, after class, because it's JUnit 4, which is the updated one, so that's why it's kind of is updated, and previously they didn't have a lot of annotation. But anyway, so after class, very similar. Before method, they don't even have. It's not descriptive. This one, we know that it runs before method. Before, we don't know if it's a method or what, right? Same thing, TestNg has a descriptive after method, and it doesn't. Ignore, in terms of true or false, it allows you to be more flexible. This one is simply, you can only do one thing, ignore. And then it's missing bunch of other annotation, like before suite, after suite, before test, after test, before group, and after group. Now, if somebody asks you what is the difference between TestNg annotation and JUnit annotation, you're gonna say, well, they're pretty much very similar. TestNg annotations are more descriptive. As you can see right here, the name was done more descriptive way, so it's easy to understand compared to JUnit. And then also JUnit is missing bunch of annotation that TestNg has. For example, these things right here. And that's it. This is the difference. And then the last difference is that JUnit doesn't give you a HTML report when TestNg can. Because you can use either one, JUnit and TestNg. So if you use TestNg, you don't have to use JUnit. And if you use JUnit, you don't have to use TestNg. You guys got it?
I have a question here.
Yes.
So when we were doing our homework, we didn't use any annotation for JUnit, right? So what was the point?
Yeah, we didn't. We just used plain, when we wrote our test initially, we just used plain Java and Selenium. And the only thing we used for JUnit, from JUnit, was the assert.
Okay.
Assert, and that's it. That's the only thing we used. You could have used JUnit tag, like for example, right here somewhere, but you have to create a method first, right? You would have to, we didn't create a method or anything. We put directly the code, we put it into inside of main. And that's why we didn't even have to use JUnit annotation at that time. Here, as you can see, everything is a method. That the way TestNg works, everything is a method, organized, nicely done. You come in here, you know this is your test. You know this is for your driver. Sorry, driver right here, somewhere here. And then you know this is where you have to close things. And
Yeah.
and definitely is good, looks good for your eyes. Basically, you can come in and right away read the test, and you can see the name. Because we're creating method, we can give it a nice name. And when you run it and you get a report, that's the main, you know, why would you use TestNg is because of the HTML report, is because of the annotation, and it just makes your life more easier. You can organize your tests. That's about it. That's pretty much it. So it's 2 p.m. and the next homework, obviously I'm going to give you guys a report on who did it and who didn't, and also a score for the last homework. So that's on me. I'm going to send it by tomorrow. I'm just going to have to sit down today and look into each of the homework. But for the next homework, we want to learn TestNg. So create a TestNg class, set up your run, edit configuration. You have to click on this. We already showed you. If you click in here, you need to select the package that you, or even the class. You can actually, if you don't create a package, you can select the class directly. But I would say select the package so you can have multiple classes under. And then you go into listener and you add two things. Use default report and also use the email reporter. Just click on plus and add to the report. We're not going to come back to JUnit, to be honest. I just want you guys to get enough practice on this. And whenever you need more help, you'll probably go back to we'll probably go back to the video, right? The end game, the bigger framework that we want to learn, where we're going to spend most of our time, the next 3 to 4 weeks, maybe like 2 to 3 weeks actually, is going to be the BDD and Cucumber report. That's where we want to spend more time and have value. Anybody here still lost and feel like they, they're behind? My recommendation is that start to do more hands-on and try to get up to speed, because as soon as you go Cucumber, you will see things are like really different. It's never going to look like this. The structure will change. Even the file is not going to be .java anymore. And you'll probably like it more, the BDD framework, because it's nicer to look at and easier to look at and easier to read. But also, if you didn't do this, then you will be really, really confused. Like, oh, when do we use Cucumber? When do we use TestNg and things like that? So this is your second framework that you just learned. Now, if you ask me,
we don't need more effort for TestNg, right?
Yeah, we're not going to go too deeper into TestNg, because what's there to,
it's just for interview question, right?
Interview, not only interview, but what left in TestNg, right? We have this annotation that all of them, we just have to know when and where they execute, and you can continue to write your test the same way. Okay, so we don't have much to cover in terms of the TestNg. We do have to mention a few things about TestNg, is that there is some useful annotation. Let me see if it's right here or not. It doesn't even show it here. Okay, let's see. TestNg has two useful annotation that really, really helps you. One is a data provider, and the other one is the data reader. And so I'll just talk about them briefly, but know how you apply your annotation. Some of the annotation takes parameters, for example, right here, data provider, that we can use. Let's see. Yeah, let me go back right here. You will see some of the annotation actually takes parameter. Like when you say ignore, this will not run. When you have a test, you can even put the expected, you can basically put parameters inside where it gets information from somewhere else. You have a timeout. Let's say you want to increase the timeout, right? Something runs and takes a little bit longer. You can put like 1,000, which is 1 second timeout at this point. I don't know if it's 1,000 milliseconds or second. I got to take a look at this. But parameterizing test, which is another way. If you want to run one thing multiple times, you can parameterize using parameters. And that's pretty much it for the TestNg. There's nothing more for me to show you. So that's why we're gonna go into Cucumber, but we'll try to cover this based on the homework. I'm sure that some of you guys will. I might have to do an extra class this week, Tuesday or Monday, depending on who gets stuck and where, right? So that way at least we can be ahead of our time. I'm trying to finish pretty much TestNg maybe like next half of the class, the next class when we do it, and then we get into Cucumber right away. Once I get into the Cucumber, what's going to happen to you guys is that we still want to cover the remaining subjects. So what I'm going to ask you guys to do is that I may just come in to the class for like half an hour and give you guys assignment on test cases. So you will work with Socrates and Shanto to create your test cases, and I will ask you to automate one test case per day until the whole course ends. At that point, writing one test case per day is going to be a piece of cake for you. Is because why? Because we've been covering this. You guys already write test cases. You guys already wrote test cases. And you guys are comfortable already. So with the new framework, I'm gonna have to show you, and if I need to do extra classes, I'll do that to make sure everybody is up to speed. And then I will let them cover their subject, but I need a test case per day, and continue to do that so that way you really feel comfortable with automation. One test case per day, I would say maybe half an hour of your time per day. And then you do everything else that they give you, homeworks and things like that. Mine should be like a piece of cake because you're doing this every day. So I'm sure you'll be fine. That's the direction that we're going to move in. But again, anything can change, right? If some of you guys are like really stuck and need help, then we'll have to jump in and do extra class. So anything can happen depending on where you are and who needs help. And so we'll just do that to make sure that nobody's left behind. And yeah, once you guys finish BDD, that means you are like 90% done with the automation. And then at that point, I need to make sure that you guys are used to writing automation. So that's when I need one test case per day. So you feel really comfortable with automated test. And then I'm going to start jumping into interview stuff. Try to prepare you guys. Then in the meantime, they will prepare you on their subjects to make sure that we have everything we need before marketing. Is there any question? Sounds like too much or sounds like, okay, we can probably deal with it. And that's why anybody behind right now, speak now.
Joel, but you have to check my homework. Second.
Yeah, we will. I spoke about that in the very beginning, right? I just don't want to spend the time of the class because we want to make sure that we're covering everything, right? And so I'll check everybody's homework. I'm gonna give you guys a score and then send you guys over personally. But that is for me to do on my own time.
No, I'm stuck on the like. So you have to like check on the after the class.
Yeah, we'll do that when we finish. Faria, you had a question?
Yeah, so Juba, what will be the homework for the next upcoming class after today?
So after today, I want you to take the same test, right? I want you to follow my steps and create them into, take all of your tests, whatever you have, and create them into TestNg test.
Okay. All right.
And just play around with the tags. Play around with the tags. This is just you getting introduction with the TestNg. We're not gonna even use it at work, but I would say just get familiar with it because the question will still be there for you, right? Okay. More question is gonna be asked during the interview is gonna be on the BDD framework. And that's where we're going to be spending the next, like, remaining classes is going to be only on BDD. We already passed the basics so far. And keep in mind, OOP concept, we will have to go deeper with OOP concept. So we're going to do that. We're going to basically, the next class, what I will give you guys is that first, I'm going to show you how to create a framework from scratch with Cucumber. Number one. Number two is that I'm going to create a framework. I'm going to share with you guys through something called GitHub. And this is something that I'm going to have to teach you guys what GitHub is, because that's when you join a company, they're going to give you a link from here. So if you search me up right here, let's see. Let's see, look up. Okay. So if you look me up right here, you'll see like so many things going on. I got 20 repositories. This is from like previous, you know, classes where I created this stuff. And so you're going to get a link, for example, acceptance test. This is the link most likely I'm going to share with you guys. And I'll show you how to take this and then start to set up on your side. That's how at work, this is what they're going to give you, right? You join the company, the second day, they'll say, okay, hey, here is the link to the repo. So you may get an email from your manager. Here's the link. Go ahead and set up. Go and set up the framework. And from here, what you need to do is something that I'm going to show you. You know, something that I'm going to show you from here, what you need to do. Like first day of work, and you joined and nobody's talking about the automation. Nobody's giving you nothing. You got to start to say, okay, hey, where is the repository? This is the repository. This is online, somewhere in the cloud. You basically take your HTTP URL, copy it, and then you will have to clone this repository in your local, and then you should be able to push code. So you see how my previous students right here, they created pull requests. Let me see who was this. So someone actually sent me this request to make some changes, right? So the way the pull request works, when you make changes, it shows previous and now. What are the changes that you're trying to make? So then I get to review your code and I get to say, okay, yes or no, right? And that's the way that let me show you a split screen. It's probably better. So on the left side is before, on the right side is after. So somebody who actually wrote and sent me this, I also reviewed it at the time, 2020, but they made some changes right here, right? And then same thing, they made some changes right here. They made some changes right here. So I can see the code and I can give them recommendation. Hey, don't do this, don't do this way or that way. I can actually type my comments directly in the code, right? And give them recommendation. And then they will make the changes. That's how at work, right? You will have to make the changes based on whatever recommendation your manager or whatever, whoever is giving you. And then after that, what they will do is that they will say, okay, it's approved. And now I can merge, right? Somewhere here is going to be merge if I log in. I'm not logged in right now. So sign in to comment. I can also comment and things like that. I can actually log in and merge this code. Now this will go into the exact repository, like all of that. So you can pull the new changes on your computer. So this is called version control, and version control tool. There is few, GitHub and SVN, that I need to show you. So when you write your code, where does it go? It either goes to one of them, GitHub, version control, SVN, and we just got to learn how to push code and how to pull code, how to create a request saying, hey, here's my code, look at it. If it's good, then go ahead and commit, merge it, and so and so. So this is how at work it works. So I still have a lot of things to show you guys. So that's why I need people that are behind, and for very, very minor reasons, like, oh, my thing's not working. But what is not working? Can you tell me exactly what is not working? Can you show me the error message? Can you send me a screenshot? That's not the way a detailed oriented person is, right? So start to get used to that kind of mentality. Like, don't feel like, okay, I went to this website and something in this website is not working, for example, Google, and I come to Google, and for example, and something in this thing is not working. I'm not going to just tell them like, hey, something is not working. It's not working. But what is not working? Can you be more specific? Can you show me what exactly didn't work? Can you show me some screenshots? Can you paste that same information in the group in your workplace? So in your case, where is your group? Is your WhatsApp group, right? If you posted that screenshot and asked somebody and they didn't have an answer, you wouldn't have to let me know today that hey, it's not working. So try to be a team player and get as much as help as you can, because I've seen people providing help, right? Some of your classmates here actually providing the help, their recommendation, what they did and what they struggled with. So keeping it to yourself until the day you really need it, like until the class day, the day that we want to, it's not detail orientated person, right? It's not somebody who is really taking things more and more seriously. So I would say anybody here far behind, do your thing. If you have struggled, just keep asking that question in the group. If not me, somebody will answer, because they did it before you already. The reason why you're struggling, that struggle was done for them. They already went through the struggle. They already did it, right? And that struggle is going to be something that everybody has to go through anyway. And so somebody can help you, but I would say try it on your own first, because that struggle is necessary in order for you to kind of understand from mistakes and learn from mistakes. All right, with that said, you guys, just be up to date. If there is anything that you guys are behind, just try to be up to date. If you need to if you need to create a TestNg framework, whatever, from scratch, you can also do that. Just do this YouTube video right here, actually. As long as you learn some TestNg, I am good to go. So you can say like TestNg Selenium framework, whatever, right? And then here you need to choose IntelliJ, because they might do Eclipse and you will get confused. So let's not do that. And TestNg IntelliJ IDE, that's it. So you can also do that. Anything, by all means, use any help that you can, right? It's not like we create the code. It's not like we basically own the code. It's out there to general public. The whole world has it, right? So if you have that struggle, put that effort toward maybe half an hour and do some YouTubing, understand what people are saying and learn from it also. Anywhere you learn from, it will just only help, because at the end of the day, we are here to train you just enough so you can keep your job, but also the main objective here to get you a job, right? If you don't get a job after the 4 months, then it's really not a lot of our time is not a lot of worth. Basically we're spending all this time. It's only worth it if you get a job. Think about this way, right? And so that's why it is our best interest to get you a job. Yes, you may have to go out there and learn something from somewhere else. That's totally on you, and you're doing that. That's pretty much appreciated, and this will help you and us. Okay, but it's not something that we create from scratch. So anything and everything that we talk about is there online. If you feel like the way that we're explaining is not clear enough, you can still Google it and somebody will have a better clarification for the same topic. So do that extra work, because we are pretty much closing down on basically toward like, okay, when can we say we're done with the course? We're basically counting on topics. At least my topics are halfway done, and then database is still left. We have some tooling. I'm gonna go into tooling right after this class, teaching you guys a few more tools like GitHub, Jira, and a few other tools that you need for work. And none of the tools and none of this technology that we're teaching you, you're not going to feel that you're 100%. You'll never feel like you know everything. And that is a normal feeling. You're not going to feel like you learned everything the way we asked. But if you know the surface level information, if you really paid attention and did something and you have at least 50% knowledge, that will do. That will just do fine. And will be good. So I would say just don't wait for tomorrow whenever you want to do something, because we're just pretty much moving through these materials and soon enough we're going to be done. Right. And then you may end up bumping into the next class because you didn't get ready. You weren't ready enough. All right, guys, with that said, it's 2:20. Everybody's clear with the homework, right? You take your current tests, convert it into TestNg, and that's it, using this video that I created today.
Okay, since I missed the previous classes, so do you think that, I mean, what do you suggest? Should I focus on the previous one first and then go ahead with the TestNg, or what should I do?
Yeah, I would say like do the previous homework first, because in order to do the TestNg, you still need the previous homework, right?
Yeah.
You can't jump in. I mean, obviously, if you can, sure, but we definitely have to do the previous homework so that way you can easily do the current one. So try to do that. And only if you can't, private message me and say, hey, look, I tried everything. I spent 2 hours researching and watching the video and I need your help. Then I'll sit down with you and try to get it through. When I sit down with you or anybody here, when you guys need my help and I'm sitting with you guys, be sure to tell me what is not working. Be sure to say, okay, this is what I tried and now this is where I'm stuck, and that's gonna be fine. That's totally fine. But if you we joined the call and now you're saying nothing is working and just want me to do everything from scratch, a complete class, that means you haven't paid attention to the previous videos. So I would then probably tell you to watch the video and then call me again when you have more questions. You guys should be like, after the class, you guys should be letting me know, this is what I'm struggling with. This is the problem. Here's a screenshot. And what can I do? That is a better way to get help. Imagine like you do the same thing at work and you tell them like, hey, this is where I'm stuck, and they will help you with that. But if you say, hey, I don't know, nothing is working for me, let's have a seat. And now you're sitting with your coworker and they're like, okay, what is not working? And now you give them an impression like you are frustrated, you totally like feel like you're being given things that you haven't really any understanding and things like that. Your coworker is going to get frustrated and he's just going to probably say, okay, deal with it. I don't know. You got to tell me exactly what is not working. And that's what it is. You have to narrow down. In order for you to narrow down, you need to first try it and say, okay, if this is not working, can I Google and find it? And things like that. So anything and everything that you can ask me, trust me, it's probably in the Google somewhere. And I think it's best thing that you can do is that if you're stuck and if you feel like you're stuck, at least spend 2 or 3 hours of Google search, try them. And if it doesn't work, then you sit down with me and I'll know right away if you try it or not. I'll know right away. Okay. And I'll probably show you, copy this and paste it on Google and tell me what do you see, right? It's good to teach you how to catch a fish rather than give you a fish. And I think that's the direction that we want to go in, because at work there will be times where you will get only advice. We can't write code in your computer because it's highly secure. Somebody else access your computer is going to be a problem for you, right? We can say, okay, what it is that you're facing. Okay, what is the issue? Okay, show me a screenshot. Okay, you know what, you should do this. And that's the help that you'll be getting. There were times where people actually shared skin with us, and even like other schools, they did the same thing where they would remotely log in and be able to help. It's no longer the case because of cybersecurity situation. And obviously it's not the right thing to do, but also it's your security team immediately will know exactly where you're sharing your screen and who you're sharing with, and they will probably take your laptop away within an hour or two, and then they will take it for more investigation. You'll be sent home, and next thing you know, you lost your job within a week. So that's what it is. There are in the past, there are stories like that where people would people would share their screen in, like, you can get support from India and stuff like that. I did have few people actually used to help me out from India, and I paid them for it. So some of my students, they can't work, I would just say, okay, call this guy. You would reach out to him in WhatsApp, and then he would sit down on his own time and help you. And your company is like wondering, why is somebody from India trying to connect to this machine? Like one time is fine, second time, third time, and you're fired. Like, why is this that you have to, we don't even have somebody in India working. So why is it that you're giving access to somebody in India and things like that? So that is a huge security reason. Obviously I no longer work with them, but we try to give you as much as ideas and help through creating your test. For example, you created on your personal computer, you created the exact framework, exact similar code and things like that. Then I can log into your personal computer and say, okay, let's look this through, and this is how we're going to be working, and this is how we need to do, which is fine. But we cannot go into your work computer. That is not the right thing to do, regardless of which angle you look at it. There were times, it's no longer the case. So if you have that kind of impression, just remove it and try to learn the right way. So at work, you don't need this kind of help. There are a few people that from the last class joined recently on automation, as an automation engineer. And they would just send me a screenshot. Okay, what do I do here? Then I tell them what needs to be done. Sometimes I hear back like, oh, this worked. Sometimes I hear back, oh no, I had to go to my coworker and then he showed me what to do. I'm like, okay, that's great. Either way is fine. Many times you'll get help from your coworker because you're working as a team, right? It's not like there's a competition going on who can and who cannot. If you get stuck, you can ask your coworker and they will probably help you also. And we'll talk about that. That is for the end, when you get your offer and you got your job. I'm gonna have to come up with a plan for the week, for the first week, first, second week, what you will do on the first week, what questions you'll ask them, everything has to be done professionally. So that way, when you join a company, they don't feel like this person really don't have much experience or something. You'll sound like somebody who has a lot of experience, and also you will do the right thing. So that way, from the very beginning, you're already putting some contribution to the team, and they know that you're working on it and you're fine. And so that's the way we're going to do. So I would say just try your best. Write one test case per day. That is not homework, but write one test case per day, and just keep posting the video. When you post a video, I noticed you guys just do code. Don't show code because other people will try to copy. Just do video when you run it, and it has like your application running, which is more value than code because they see it running. If they want to do the same thing, they'll have to write code, which is fine. What I want from you guys is that be able to write your own test case and automate them. And the next class, I may do half of the class TestNg to make sure that all the questions that you may have on TestNg is done. And then I'm going to go into BDD Cucumber. And once I hit BDD Cucumber, that will be pretty much from there on, only BDD Cucumber, only the BDD framework we're going to be using. And we're going to be using GitHub to push and pull code. And you'll see like instead of sending me the code on a video, you're going to send me through here, pull request. You're going to send me right here, and it'll look like this. You added new file and you added new code and things like that. And I will review and I will say, okay, pass or fail. And I will do the pass and fail right here. So it'll be very easy to track, right? And this is going to make you a true developer at this point, right? So you can write code, but how do you do the code delivery? And that's what you're going to learn. And this process will help you to become, at this point, true developer. Doesn't mean you're going to be like tycoon, somebody who knows how to code all the way, but at least you can write some code and be able to do the whole process on delivering the code. So that the next class you will learn GitHub and everything. Hopefully BDD along with it. And after that, we'll see where we are. And I may just do extra class, maybe on TestNg, maybe like on Monday or Tuesday, depending on what you guys need and your availability, and go from there. So I would say on the channel, do a vote and choose either Monday or Tuesday, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. If you guys need that extra work, then either Monday or Tuesday we can do that. Do a vote, and majority of you guys, if it's more than 5 people, I'll do it, and we'll have an extra class on TestNg and finish TestNg on that day. It's 2:30 Sunday, so I'll let you guys go. If you guys have any question, just private message me or put it on the group. It's gonna be better. And I know that who has a problem here. Second, I'm gonna stop recording, and